This young man is excited to be the first to take on the challenge on the 600th floor, facing a horde of monsters that suddenly get wiped out. The ones who acted are the 9 stars, the most prominent among millions who entered the tower using magic and divine power obtained from the tower to achieve unmatched strength. They have prevented Father Jin Huk from entering the 600th floor, a star known as the Black Star or Death Star, not a master using any weapon or divine method. He is the man who holds the title of the strongest Father Jin Huk, bringing forth a death army, the embodiment of death, a great soul master who only needs power, not peace and humanity. The 9 stars decided to execute Father Jin Huk, who betrayed humanity. Although considered the strongest, Jin Huk cannot face the 9 alone, and must face the punishment reserved for traitors. But that is just a story that Mother often tells us before bed. Jin Huk is not a traitor. In reality, he was betrayed by 8 of the 9 stars, hiding the truth. 15 years passed, and this young man slept until noon, then woke up yelling, "Damn it, 9 stars, I will return." He was surprised that his secret skill had actually succeeded. It is the transfer of the soul at the moment of facing death. It will transfer his soul to a more suitable body. Father Jin Huk has returned in a new form. The grudge against the 9 stars is still deeply etched in his mind from that day when Jin Huk was ambushed by the holy knight Cain Pelon and the goddess Carmen Pelon, who summoned the circle of holy light. Neutralizing his dark power, Jin Huk wanted to know why they betrayed him. Cain looked down at him with a contemptuous smile. "I'm just weeding out the weeds." Choi Kyung-hoon, Jin Hyuk's friend and a combat star of the 9 stars, was unaware that they had entered the 600th floor. They must be afraid he would help Jin Huk. Though frustrated, Jin Hyuk's eyes were gradually fading. This time he was outnumbered, so he had to concede, but this is not the end. He will return stronger than ever. So now Jin Huk is sitting here with the purpose of revenge, ready to crush their souls. At that moment, his phone rang. Jin Huk hadn't used his phone in a long time, but it looked pretty fancy. He opened it to find out that this year is 2023, meaning 15 years have passed, but to him it feels like just a short nap. The skill is a bit lame. Mentioning the skill, Jin Huk decided to test his new body. He killed an ugly fly that flew by, held it in his hand, and focused his mind saying, "Awaken." In response, he only heard Siri's voice from the phone. Jin Huk frantically tried again and again, telling the fly's corpse, "Awaken, awaken." In the end, he had to accept the reality that this body was only good-looking but had no mana whatsoever. And he had to climb from the first floor without any skills at all. Suddenly, Jin Huk remembered that the 9 stars were still alive and yet 15 years had passed. Choi Kyung-hoon only climbed to the 800th floor. But for him, this is the opportunity. While they are enjoying themselves, he will catch up and take revenge. To level up quickly, he must go to the tower, not the gym. Although his body is no different from a newbie, he has the experience from his previous life. It won't be long before he regains his level at the entrance of the tower in Seoul, where thousands are signing up to climb the tower. Dreaming of reaching the top of the tower and living in wealth and luxury, this tower is where the hopes and stories of each person begin, including Jin Huk. He will return in the name of the Black Star to rebuild his reputation and take revenge. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the entrance to the tower opened, and the first challenge of Jin Hyuk's second life began. The first place he went to was the fake tower. Including 5 years from his previous life climbing the tower, it has been 15 years since Jin Huk returned to the tutorial stage, but this tower has been a nightmare right from the entrance. The path looks simple, but is filled with traps. It will take at least a few days to get through. Besides the 10 floors of the tower, this place is the most ridiculous. First, he needs to check the stats of this body. Everything is so terrible that he barely dares to read. But there are 2 differences: gluttony and mana physique, unlike his previous life. Could it be that the innate traits and physiques among souls are not the same? Regardless of the world, his goal is to clear this path completely. Jin Hyuk sprinted. A magic trap arrow had been activated, but of course it missed him because he was already familiar with this trap. But that was just the beginning. Behind him, there were a few more arrows. Jin Hyuk accelerated to dodge, but he lost sight of what was ahead, and so he got a few arrows stuck in him. Jin Hyuk told himself to hang in there, it would be over soon. But with about 10 more arrows flying towards him like shooting stars, only a ghost could dodge them. Jin Hyuk ran on, despite the pain finally returning to the starting point. All his wounds were healed first. He wanted to see how far he could go, but it was undeniably painful. Now he couldn't just run with his eyes shut. He had to play dirty. No, he had to use his abilities. Consumption helped Jin Huk absorb lifeless things and turn them into his own, like his blood splattering on the ground, increasing all his stats by 1 to 2. Although it was a bit weak, his experience and endurance also increased. He didn't care about setting up equipment stats, but could still endure the abnormal state. It basically took about a week for Jin Huk to complete the tutorial level, but he would still take every arrow and keep going to enhance his stats thanks to consumption. He continued until he'd reached the maximum experience and endurance level, and it took him a whole month to finish the tutorial level because Jin Huk also had to go out to eat. Some gods and demons expressed interest in his dog blood method, but Jin Huk had no goodwill towards those cruel, twisted beings playing this tower climbing game. The gods and demons watched the players to see if anyone similar to them appeared, and none of them revealed their titles or true names, even when he cursed them all day long. He knew all about their recruitment tactics. But whether in this life or the last, Jin Huk would never play with them. A message from the 10,000 demons sent to him recently. "How are you?" Hearing that familiar name, Jin Huk cursed the demon. Normally cruel, but this one was a clingy pest from his past life who followed him like a leech to recruit him as a disciple. Fortunately, thanks to him transferring souls, Jin Huk was able to return. Overall, he wasn't useless, but thanks to that demon talking to him, other beings began to pay attention to Jin Huk. He was then lectured by him while other gods found it interesting. Jin Huk knew they wanted to see who he would follow. But in life, you shouldn't let anyone know your next move, so he quietly stayed by his side. Of course, no matter who he followed, Jin Huk wouldn't go back to that clingy demon. Now was the time to see the results he had harvested. All his stats had significantly increased. Although gathering mana was still a bit difficult for him, he was someone with a mana physique, so Jin Huk could steadily enhance them. Suddenly, another ability was unlocked. Although he already had consumption, it turned out the owner of this body had that ability all along. It was called Jack of All Trades. The name sounded lame, which disappointed Jin Huk, but this ability helped him excel at everything in real combat with additional adjustments. To match his proficiency, although the name sounded rural, this was truly amazing, a title he had never been able to obtain. Even though it took a long time to prepare, he was the best at everything, a master of all trades. Suddenly, that demon jumped out to chat, wanting to see his status window. But of course, there was nothing. Now he would go to the next level, and whether that demon wanted to follow him or not was irrelevant. Based on experience, knowledge, and experience, the next room was surely the selection and training room, and it was just as expected. This was where Jin Huk could choose suitable weapons and professions, then destroy the floor. This is where Jin Huk can choose the right weapon and profession, then destroy the floor. And he will be transported to the first floor in his previous life. Jin Huk did not hesitate to choose to be a wizard because he had mana affinity. This time he wanted to see how impressive this multi-talented trait was. So he set up a training target. Jin Huk with his bow and arrow was filled with killing intent, shooting one shot that created 3 arrows, all hitting the mark. Jin Huk increased the difficulty. He created a target that could attack him regardless of the system warning that this was risky play. 5 targets were created and attacked Jin Huk, who skillfully shot them down. The remaining 2 were easily dispatched with his sword. This was not enough for Jin Huk. He wanted to try all weapons and demanded stronger targets summoning giants. Before he could impress the readers, he shot through the head of one, then turned to the 2 behind. Suddenly, a group of ranged attackers appeared. Jin Huk quickly hid behind the head of the giant. He then went to find a weapon. The system warned that these were the strongest now, but for Jin Huk, what could be better, he would use his specialty, which was this gigantic magic wand. I'm faster than you guys. Jin Huk used magic arrows to wipe out the entire group. He did not expect a multi-talented person to be so incredibly strong. It felt like he had years of experience using weapons. Suddenly, the system announced that he had achieved an accomplishment and was rewarded with the class of Omni Master. Jin Huk did not expect this to be a job as well, but a person can only have one class. Jin Huk was not going to choose the Omni Master and give up his strengths. He needed to choose it. Jin Huk wanted the Omni Master to be his side job, but the system said, "Dream on, kid." A secondary class can only be unlocked after level 100. Jin Huk cursed. Now he could not leave here without a job. He tried to use his achievement points to unlock the secondary class, but the system marked a question mark. Because this is something that rookies cannot know, achievement points are a currency obtained by completing tasks. Players can use these points to change the system. What good does it do to ask me again? Jin Huk said he would use 5,000 points to unlock it, but he was still 50 points short. Jin Huk sighed and finally had to call the soul summoning. He asked it to reveal its identity and talk to him because it counted towards the achievement and he would gain 200 more points. Even though the summoning helped him with 200 points, he still couldn't stand its attitude. The essence of a demon is still a demon, right? Finally, he had the Omni Master as a secondary class. Now he would destroy the floor and teleport to the first floor of the tower, stopping at Corona 3. The young player was facing off against a bunch of mischievous goblins, but seemed to be having a hard time. Just then, a savior fell from the sky, and it was Jin Huk. He aimed directly at the head of the first prey and crushed its skull. "Hello, long time no see. Since climbing to level 600, I haven't seen this bunch of goblins. Meeting me means your time is up. Quickly follow and obey me." The young man behind was in the process of becoming Jin Huk's hardcore fan number 35. Although he was a wizard, he attacked physically. The other young man didn't care who he was or where he came from. He just wanted to cooperate. Jin Huk coldly said, "Today all the kobolds here belong to me." The two young men were so scared they immediately ran away. The remaining two kobolds charged in to avenge their brother. The first one was punched by Jin Huk, its skull smashed. He whipped it with his wand like a whip, and the other one was so scared it ran away. But Jin Huk did not let it escape, shooting through it and sending the three kobolds back to the underworld. Now the system welcomed him to the first floor with the mission to defeat 10 kobolds. For him, that was easy peasy. Jin Huk remembered that if he killed a type of monster 1,000 times, he would receive the title of that species' assassin. In the past, he ran around to collect various assassin titles, and now he would absorb the power of these kobolds. Jin Huk swallowed hard. He not only saw the memories of the kobold, but also gained its power and even understood its mother tongue. By absorbing the kobold, he had raised his stats to match those of someone climbing level 10. There was also the matter of refining his class to gain additional stats for each level up, which was incredibly overpowered. Suddenly, an important memory of the kobold flashed by. It was hurrying to prepare food to bring to the kobold lord. Thus, he had a second target, the lord, which was a harbinger of the monster wave. He could also pick up the title of Cobra Assassin and grind experience in this mission. But to confront the wave, you need an army. Now is the time to manipulate these cobras. Make them rise and become the 3 skeletal soldiers. Jin Huk's career change to a soul summoner is as easy as pie, but his greed knows no bounds. While there is still a hidden profession in this first level, he must be the one to obtain it. Suddenly, 4 other skeletal girls show up, truly a great opportunity for Jin Huk to send his skeletal girl army into battle. A moment later, Jin Huk leads his skeletal girl followers to find a simple rustic 4th-level house that is empty inside. Jin Huk thanks the heavens that no hunter has come here before. He kicks the floor, breaking it open to reveal a hidden passage where the hidden profession of the first level is stored. He walks while collecting several quartz crystals on the steps of the necromancer's hidden profession somewhere around here. In the coffin containing this profession change, he boldly flips open the lid of a coffin and a skeleton dressed in clothes flies out. He is Vun Kan speaking despite having no vocal cords. "Are you my descendant?" Vun Kan says nothing but only smirks, thinking Jin Huk would be astonished, so he tried to appear as ghostly as possible after reading Vun Kan's diary. Jin Huk has passed the threshold of astonishment, but of course in this life he hasn't read it. In his previous life, he spent a long time in agony because he had to change his profession to a mage. Jin Huk accidentally found it and returned to the first level. After becoming a necromancer, he failed to turn Vun Kan into his summoned creature, "I like you." Vun Kan seems pleased when he speaks more politely than that rude jerk from 15 years ago, and that jerk is none other than himself in his previous life. Jin Huk has to hold back from smashing the skeleton in front of him. He must change his profession right now, but Vun Kan says he needs to reach the 10th level first, because a necromancer is superior to a soul summoner, blah blah. He doesn't care what he rambles on about. Jin Huk presents a status board proving he is a soul summoner even without needing to reach the 10th level to change. "Excellent, truly a rare talent," Vun Kan exclaims loudly. He thinks Jin Huk is more skilled and outstanding than that fool from 15 years ago, and of course that fool is his previous self. Too busy talking, he forgot about changing Jin Huk's profession. This frustrates Jin Huk. Vun Kan immediately performs the ritual on him. Before the tower appeared on Earth, he was the most legendary tower climber in the world. Although he was already the strongest soul summoner, Vunkan still sought ways to become stronger. A summoned creature made of bones and skin was not enough. He wanted something different, and that was a soul. Vunkan was determined to summon the soul of the dead to create a summoned creature with a unique ability in that era. At the same time, he created a profession called necromancer. However, despite being strong, Vunkan had to succumb to old age. The necromancer profession was on the brink of disappearing. Vunkan used his last method, which was to apply the summoning command on himself, hoping his descendant would restore his honor. To find a tower climber to continue his legacy, he became half an NPC after handing over the soul cup to Jin Huk. Vunkan congratulates him on having a job. Use this soul cup to capture and summon souls. Of course, Jin Huk already knows that. And his first target is Vunkan, who failed in his previous life. So in this life, he will not fail again. Vunkan hopes he will climb the tower and make his name famous, but Jin Huk says that you must work to earn. If you don't work but expect to gain, you'll only get bricks. You didn't keep the promise written in the diary, Vunkan angrily shouted. It's not good to push work onto others. So Jin Huk will help him become more amiable, starting with collecting his soul. Vunkan's soul is escaping, but it's not easy to trap him. Vunkan flies out. He gives Jin Huk the finger. Ha ha, shame on you. Just as he finished speaking, his skull hit a wall. Vunkan fell into a magic circle. Jin Huk had calculated everything. The magic wall is a low-level spell. He created a personal prison for him. Vunkan is still struggling, but low-level spells are nothing he can't break. I didn't say this was the only thing. Jin smirked. He had solved many stone goblins and cast spells to activate them, but they could be easily destroyed. But that was just before he got locked up. Now Vunkan feels desperate. He had been dead for hundreds of years and still encountered a filthy trickster like him. Jin Huk spoke the truth, telling him that in his previous life he was the second necromancer, and now he was the third. Vunkan screamed wildly. Who would have thought he would come back to take him again? Jin Huk used the soul cup to suck him in. Now only heaven could save him. Vunkan was just a skeleton now. With him as a disciple, he could have whatever he wanted. The 9 stars were just waiting for him to come home and grab each one by the head. Jin Huk returned with his skeletal minions and other gods who were curious about his profession, but Jin Huk would not reveal it. Sooner or later, they would see his performance. The skeletal minions looked at him with longing eyes, but Jin Huk no longer needed them. He decided to return their bones to Mother Earth while their souls continued to serve him. They were all cool, but suddenly mute. Then a resentful voice rang out, cursing his entire family. It was none other than Vunkan the fire god. Jin Huk had to shout at his form. He must have wasted a lot of girls when he was young. Vunkan continued to go crazy, wanting to fight him, but suddenly his throat was choked. Now he was living off Jin Huk's mana, so if he stopped supplying mana, Vunkan would vanish immediately. With his arrogant and rebellious personality, Vunkan refused to be Jin Huk's dog. He leaned close and whispered, "Do you have any other choices?" He was the one who turned his acquaintances into soul orbs and absorbed them, so he had no right to condemn him. Besides, he still had that gluttonous skill. If he didn't behave, Vunkan would be deliciously devoured by him. Now what do you want? Jin Huk pointed to the kobold lair, taking it as a stronghold. At night, Jin Huk would go out for a stroll. Encountering 2 kobolds on guard, he unleashed 2 kobold souls and dealt with them in an instant. He was holding 30 kobold souls, so these guys stood no chance against him. Besides, in this life, he wouldn't sit still. The Lord of the Kobolds, who was indulging in his room, discovered an intruder and ordered his soldiers to prepare offerings quickly. Jin Huk was rampaging in the hallway. He had gotten close to the Lord of the Kobolds' room, sensing its aura, which encouraged him with a staff. The light made Jin Huk annoyed. He didn't need an old man with hairy legs cheering him on because he would win anyway. At the same time, the Lord of the Kobolds was performing some ritual, but it screamed that it wasn't enough. Until they were satisfied, it still wasn't enough glory for the next sacrificial demon lord to be brought up. She was a demon lord that the Lord found delightful, because the demon lord was a tastier offering than a human. Just then, Jin Huk appeared. He didn't care what they were sacrificing or summoning because they would all become his soldiers anyway. The good thing being ruined made the Lord of the Cobra furious, and on top of that, Jin Huk insulted him as the scum of the earth. "I am the renowned king of the goblins. Show some respect, you human," he shouted angrily. "Scare me." Jin Huk sneered at Dr. B, who didn't understand what was happening, but this was her chance to escape. Callum asked for power from the demon lord to attack. Two claws flew towards Dr. B, and just at that tense moment, she tripped and fell to the ground, giving Jin Huk the opportunity to fly out and punch, breaking the two claws into many pieces. It was as simple as in a textbook. Jin Huk originally intended to let her go. But up close, he realized she was Dr. B, one of the powerful beings living on the 100th floor, so there was no reason for them to come down here. She hadn't even matured yet. He decided to save her to ask for more information about what had happened on the 100th floor. Jin Huk told her to quickly escape to another place. If she was targeted again, he wouldn't save her. Ken Lum wouldn't let it go, grabbing two unfortunate kobolds nearby to use as explosives. Jin Huk quickly passed them before they exploded. He delivered an uppercut that sent Can Lum flying 8 meters away. This old body couldn't take it anymore. Now was just the beginning for Jin Huk, but it seemed Can Lum still had a final move. He screamed, "Demon Lord, take me!" It turned out he had sacrificed himself. A pile of fresh blood burst forth, gripping Jin Huk and forming a blood golem. Unexpectedly, that clumsy guy was able to summon such a high-level monster. The blood golem slammed Jin Huk's head down to the ground, causing the clumsy guy to delightfully laugh. "Ha ha, are you scared now?" He confidently boasted about his strongest soul summoning technique, while Jin Huk was annoyed that a toad would dare compare itself to a swan, wanting to show him what true soul summoning was. The soul army was summoned and entered the blood golem, causing it to explode from within as the clumsy guy blinked at Jin Huk, who was walking away. Proudly standing under the rain of blood, his terrifying arrogance was what he cared about. How could the clumsy guy create a blood golem? This must be something the Demon Lord was involved in. Jin Huk had noticed the Demon Lord's interest in his Soul Master powers, since he was curious about them. Summoning the blood golem while seeing him fight the clumsy guy was just a toy for Jin Huk. He was unwilling to accept defeat, believing that the Demon Lord would definitely take revenge for him. He also hoped that the guy would come to him so they could chat, but for now he had to deal with the clumsy lord who was being crushed by his own clan's soul. This was the punishment for those who dared to challenge him first, the clumsy guy, then the Demon Lord. Jin Huk crushed the clumsy guy's body into pieces. He looked more like a villain than the villain himself. The next step was, of course, to absorb the clumsy guy's soul to make him a servant. Seeing his soul about to escape, Jin Huk quickly grabbed him, saying he had work for him to do. Jin Huk turned him into a soul orb, allowing him to collect souls and create potions. To use the potion, one had to open their mouth, and Jin Huk was looking forward to it. But this meal was not as delicious as he thought. The increase in stats meant nothing. At that moment, the Dokkaebi girl crawled out to thank him, introducing herself as Haru. Jin Huk had let her escape, but it seemed Haru was not afraid of him threatening that he would kill or sell her. "If that happens, I will deal with you!" Harry suddenly burst out with killing intent. Jin Huk laughed, saying that indeed, when it came to repaying favors or seeking revenge, they would definitely do it. Jin Huk was curious why someone on the 100th floor like Haru would come down to the bottom. Haru hesitated, and then said that there had been an attack on the Dokkaebi village on the 100th floor, surprising Jin Huk. Because Dokkaebi are extremely powerful creatures in this tower. Even tower climbers find it difficult to deal with them. He speculated that it could be due to one of the 4 great powers of the giant race. The essence of magic from the Dragon Clan, the demon energy masters from the Demon Clan, and the purging wings of the Divine Clan. They are the 4 great powers controlling everything in the tower. Surely one of them underestimated Dr. B like this. Or it could be an individual they assisted, or perhaps those reckless 9 stars who dare to do anything. Mentioning those bastards filled him with hatred. Jin Huk decided to leave. He couldn't stay in the place that smelled of blood like this. Haru volunteered to go with Jin Huk. Although she was young, having her on the team wouldn't be bad. If she followed, Jin Huk wouldn't protect her or anything. Haru was confident she could take care of herself. She had just barely escaped being killed by that clumsy guy. Jin Huk reminded her of his experience making Haru embarrassed and wanting to put that aside. Jin Huk needed to change clothes since this outfit was soaked in fresh blood. He suddenly saw a piece of equipment drop from the clumsy guy just in time, so Jin Huk had new gear even though he looked like a monk. The two emerged from underground, announcing they had dealt with all of them. The remaining Dokkaebi in the castle was curious about who he was. The clumsy guy didn't know why she could see souls. Haru flexed a bit. Some doctors had a high affinity for souls. Unexpectedly, she also knew how to show herself as a special individual. He wondered if he should use bait to absorb her power all the time. The notification system for the Monster Wave mission has been awaited by Jin Huk for a long time. The other two were extremely shocked, unable to believe he would accept it all. But how could he pass up such a delicious bait? If he didn't do it, there would be no way to defeat the Lord here. Although most of the gods and demons thought he was reckless, the demon promised to grant him a gift, if he succeeds. Furthermore, the connection must be solid. There is not enough faith that he will conquer this monster wave. Jin Huk knew that he wanted him to go down the hole so he could be free, but he felt reassured, because even if he went down, he would still have to be his servant. After accepting the mission, all safe zones on the first floor were disabled. The other players were frustrated not knowing which bastard accepted this monster wave mission. They quickly moved up to the second floor before the wave arrived, of course, after they had completed the first floor mission. A bolt of lightning struck from the sky, signaling bad omens. The group of demons rushed out from another dimension, wildly attacking the tower climbers, who could only huddle together and scream. At that moment, another column of light appeared. Jin Huk brought along 2 of his loyal followers to face the challenge, along with a warning to the others. If anyone touches even one of them, I will slaughter all of you. They not only ignored his arrogant words, but also worried that Jin Huk would be crushed. Jin Huk had prepared an army to confront them. What would happen if the demon fought against the demon? Here is the soul. Jin Huk stood back, enjoying the sight of his followers handling the Haru wave. With permission granted, Haru summoned a spatial bag and took out a sword. It looked very cool, and with a swift motion, Haru effortlessly sliced a kobold in half. Jin Huk was sure that sword was not ordinary, and despite her youth, she could easily control it. Perhaps the target of the invaders in her village was Harry. Suddenly, 3 tower climbers, feeling indignant because Jin Huk took all the waves, introduced themselves as Kim Seung, hailing from the White Crane Guild. Jin Huk had no idea what their white birds or white grass were. Seung arrogantly introduced the White Crane as a subsidiary guild of the Holy Land. What the hell did you just say? Are you talking about the Pelin brothers? Mentioning those 2 touches on his pain. Gong Ti still didn't realize the danger ahead, boasting about reaching the 10th floor with his brother. Today, seeing Jin Huk's dominance, he also wanted to recruit him. Sorry, but I don't need Jin Huk to hug a guy tightly. At that moment, he also needed information about the remaining Pelin duo who were indignant and shouted, "Why are you blocking our way? We're all tower climbers, right? You threaten others just because you're stronger. Why not?" Jin Huk calmly replied. Everything was already clear. They cannot attack others, kill others, or steal from others in this tower. Power is everything, and right now he only needed information so he would spare that Seong guy. Instead of talking nonsense and making him angry, it would be best to stay away from him. The other 2 rushed to support him. "What are you planning to do, avenge him?" Seong muttered. He already knew how strong Jin Huk was. He had to run away before he got caught. Later, Jin Huk and his followers joined the wave of tremendous power, but it did not significantly reduce the overwhelming number of demons. Jin Huk would confront them head-on while Vulcan controlled the rear. Because he was also a soul master, Jin Huk's army of souls combined with Vulcan's skeletal army to break the monster wave apart, and with each strike, more soldiers appeared. Haru was still on her own stage, but her strength was limited compared to the overwhelming numbers. In a moment of carelessness, Haru was ambushed from behind. Although it was painful, Haru remembered the memories of her beloved village that had been burned down, so this pain was nothing to her. Haru was even more enraged. But after a few minutes, Haru reached her limit. At that moment, the explosion behind her caused by Jin Huk startled her. She was very impressed by him, a first-floor tower climber with incredible strength. Therefore, Haru must follow Jin Huk to learn from him and then take revenge for her village. Lost in thought, Haru almost got ambushed a second time, but this time it was Vulcan who saved her. Haru, trembling, stood up with her sword, wanting to continue fighting. Vulcan was curious about what Haru had been through to be so resilient, while Haru wondered why he was helping her. When Haru fled from the 100th floor, no one helped her. As long as no one harmed her, she would be grateful. She thought that Vulcan was helping her for some reason. Little did she know, Vulcan said that the warrior's soul must always obey the commands of its master, and the master was Jin Huk, who had requested him to ensure. Haru was still alive and had achieved her goal, but now Vulcan had to continue running deadlines, otherwise Jin Huk would nag him again. Haru was very grateful to Jin Huk, the only person in this tower who helped her, so Haru had to live to repay this favor. Haru donned the mask of a demon, her body bursting with power, as if she had never felt pain before. This sudden strength astonished both Jin Huk and Vulcan. Haru vanished and reappeared like a demon in an instant. She moved and took down countless cobras, feeling as if she was relishing in the slaughter. Jin Huk, witnessing Haru's performance, became even more certain that the one who attacked her village had targeted Haru and that sword. It would be best if Jin Huk did not tell Haru about this. There was one last minute before the wave ended. The portal was shrinking, and the last one was running outside. Jin Huk excitedly threw a dagger through it, successfully stopping the wave of monsters. Vunken truly admired Jin Huk's performance. Haru seemed too exhausted, staggering. Jin Huk held her. Her skills were strong, but she shouldn't use them while facing Jin Huk in her exhausted state. Haru always displayed unusual emotions, as if embarrassed to set this aside. Now was the time to receive the reward. Jin Huk had been waiting for this moment for a long time. The title of the Goblin Assassin all stats increased to 5 stars. Although not much, those 500 bonus points would also be added to the stats. If Jin Huk leveraged the Omnipotent Master and Greedy to learn skills, these stats would increase without any. The reward points were given to the top 3, which happened to be Jin Huk, Haru, and Vunken, even though he couldn't believe he was awarded. But anyway, this reward belonged to Jin Huk. That's the fate of being a servant. Haru also handed her reward to Jin Huk as a symbol of their future. However, Jin Huk did not take it from Haru. In the past, he had been hurt badly. Therefore, Jin Huk could not trust anyone. The reward for second place was too valuable for him to accept without suspicion. Even though Haru was allowed to follow him, it didn't mean he trusted her. Unless she proved her loyalty, Haru did not hesitate to give him the doctor mask. To prove Vunken couldn't believe she handed over the doctor mask. To outsiders, because it was essentially the source of life of a doctor, they would give it to their true love when proposing. Jin Huk also didn't understand why she gave it to him. To propose. It was to thank him for saving her life twice, Haru said sincerely, and she also wanted to prove that she would not betray him. This mask was worth more. Therefore, Jin Huk felt she had another purpose for revenge. Haru said she didn't detail that her village had been burned down and that no one survived. Perhaps she was the last doctor. So Haru had to take revenge for her clan, and the way she chose was to climb the tower with Jin Huk. Jin Huk looked at Haru. She wanted revenge just like him. However, if she betrayed him, the price to pay would be Harry Potter's life. He took the reward, and the mask was worthless to him, so it was only decorative. Harry Potter was so excited that he called him Appa, causing Jin Huk to get goosebumps. Putting aside the title, it was time to unbox 3 gifts. First was a mana ring that reduced mana consumption by 10%. Next was mana earrings that reduced it by 15%, and finally a mana necklace that reduced it by 20%. It was clear that these were indeed good items. While Haru had no knowledge of them, they were perfect for a soul master like Jin Huk, who needed a large amount of mana to maintain his army. Waiting for the demon lord to speak, Jin Huk had to remind him of that promise. He reminded him of that promise. But he told Jin Huk to go play somewhere else, so Jin Huk decided to go elsewhere. The group entered a deserted town restaurant as they evacuated to the 2nd floor to avoid the wave. After the second reminder, the demon lord finally chose a gift for him, which was a skull ring that looked very dangerous. Jin Huk was thrilled to pick it up and examine it. He was astonished. Wait, this is... He paused mid-sentence, causing both Vunkan and Haru to be curious, while Jin Huk's face twisted. This ring contained shocking magical power, making Vunkan unable to believe it. Magical power is the essence of demons, a source of energy considered high-level mana. Usually, to obtain magical power, a human must become a slave to demons, but only a little magical power can be acquired. Accumulated over the years after wearing the ring, the demon lord wanted to make peace with him. Jin Huk agreed to forgive him this time. At least the gift was very nice, and everyone felt happy. Only Ban was extremely jealous, wishing to death that he could shake hands with Jin Huk. If he wanted to shake hands, he should bring it over here. Jin Huk slyly said that his hand was not something anyone could just grab. Ban felt helpless going through 6 wardrobes, drawers, and under the bed, but his house was poorer than the demon lord's. In the end, Ban decided to create a mission. What the hell is this? Jin Huk was startled. A mission from a demon sounds great. Vunkan was even more excited than Jin Huk. Who knows who was climbing the tower? Jin Huk would accept Ban's proposal, but he mumbled something. That wasn't Ban's intention. Anyway, it was too late to stop. Ban's mission was to become famous everywhere in the tower before reaching the 100th floor. If he failed, he would have to become his follower. and if he succeeded, he would provide any formula. With a demon's formula, nothing is impossible anymore. Jin Huk was very satisfied. However, the punishment was quite harsh, but he liked to take risks. So Jin Huk would take on this mission. The agreement was to shake hands with Ban. He was very satisfied to hold his idol's hand. After completing the first floor, Jin Huk would find that Seung Tae to extract information. This simple mission was assigned to Vun Kan. He had already let a soul follow him. He was still on the first floor, but far away from them. So good, you should teach me that trick. I'm off now. Vun Kan was unwilling to leave. Duyen Hu decided to chat with Haru while waiting for him. He wanted to know the story behind that Dokkaebi mask. On the way, Haru explained to him that the mask allowed the user to utilize the powers of Dokkaebi, which were enchanting and supernatural. With Haru, she could use that power, supernatural, and use clairvoyance to see the future. Jin Huk felt a bit unlucky. If she could unleash that power, it would have helped in battles already. Haru suddenly stared at him, making Jin Huk uncomfortable while she felt he was very strange. People outside had tried every way to use this power. They prayed to see the future and sought every way to escape fate. Jin Huk felt it unnecessary to avoid it. If he was worried about something, he just needed to smash it. Haru felt her power would suit him well because she used battlefield clairvoyance, a specialized ability for combat. Suddenly, Jin Huk joyfully hugged Haru. Making her blush perfect is really good when she is the best with Haru. He will have a chance to defeat the weapon users of the 9 stars. This moment has been captured in a photo. Jin Huk angrily chased him away, telling him to disappear quickly. He was so excited that he acted without thinking. Jin Huk immediately apologized to Haru, saying that he would use this mask well and help Haru take revenge as well as avenge himself. Haru felt extremely lucky and hopeful for their future. While the two embraced each other, Vun Kan was on a mission, squeezing Seung Tae's mouth so he couldn't make a sound. The close friends had all run away. Do you know how hard it is to capture you alive? That damn master moves like a turtle. Vun Kan grumbled. Just then, Jin Huk crawled over. Vun Kan immediately snitched that Seung Tae wanted to run away. Jin Huk drew his sword, saying not to misunderstand, he was just returning it to him. But Jin Huk would let him choose where he would stab this sword, the stomach or that head. The CEO was so scared that he spilled all the information about the White Swans and then ran away with his tail between his legs. Sooner or later, he would destroy that organization. So let him go like that, but there are countless small organizations between the 10th and 200th floors. Dealing with all of them would take a lot of time. However, if it goes smoothly, they could build a reputation. Regarding the destruction of his brother's organizations, Pelon completed the mission on the 2nd floor. Those climbing the tower were discussing Jin Huk, who had blocked the monster wave. When he stepped out, everyone was curious, but Jin Huk had put on the Dr. Bobby mask, making it impossible for them to recognize him. They rushed to ask him like television reporters. But right now, the name Cha Jin Huk couldn't be revealed, so he decided to choose another name, after saying that he and his 2 subordinates turned their backs and left much to the displeasure of others. One person feared that Jin Huk had committed a crime before coming to this trial tower. Because many people had entered the tower to escape their crimes, hiding their faces or identities in the tower was common, so surely everyone would pay attention to him because of the wave and that bizarre mask. But now they had to leave to do something significant. This mission to defeat the Goblin Warrior didn't seem too difficult, so Jin Huk assigned it to Vun Kan. He twitched his mouth and asked again, "Don't tell me you want me to capture them alive." "If possible, bring Haru's part too." Jin Huk cunningly said he wanted to test this magic power. Vun Kan swore and had to leave. He reminded him not to use all the magic power before he returned. Haru was curious if it was okay to do a mission like this. But Jin Huk didn't stop her from going to do the mission. Now was the time for him to test the magic power to see how strong it was. A black-purple flame hovered in front of him. It turned out this was magic power. Harry Potter detected movement. A cobra emerged from the bushes with a bloodthirsty face. Jin Huk needed a test subject, so he shot magic power at it, but the cobra dodged. Jin Huk thought he had miscalculated, but this was contact magic. It didn't need to cause an effect, but would make the target's body disintegrate. Magic power was a type of fierce energy. Those unworthy of it would not be able to resist, and this is what would happen to them even if the magic power just brushed past them. The next important part was when Jin Huk infused magic power into a soul soldier. A stronger soul soldier would form. Jin Huk was like a chemist conducting an experiment, but the soul was already disintegrating. It seemed it couldn't withstand the magic power, so he would have to reduce the magic power density. After sweating, he completed a soul soldier containing magic power that looked incredibly cool. Besides demons, not many people could use pure magic power, so no one knew how easy it was to use. Just at that moment, Vun Kan returned, showing interest in the fusion of magic and soul, suggesting that he name them soul soldiers to sound impressive. Vun Kan approached to observe the soul soldier kobold closely. "Aha, it's always perfect when you are my student. From now on, every time you capture a soul, Jin Huk will have to channel magic into it. It will be very difficult to do this on the battlefield." But suddenly Jin Huk remembered that he should make full use of everything he has. "Speaking of summoning, you are much more skilled than I am." Jin Huk praised him, making him feel pleased. While enjoying the compliment, a surge of magic rushed in, catching him off guard. If he channels magic into the soul of Vun, can then the soul soldiers he summons will also automatically turn into ghost soldiers because his soul is stronger than that of the goblins, so he will have to use up all this magic. Haru was worried for Vun Kan, but Jin Huk was 100% sure he couldn't be defeated. Vun Kan swore he would overcome this pain and crush Jin Huk, that unruly student, after a chaotic exchange of insults. Just then, Vun Kan's ghost soldiers were born. Jin Huk was very proud of the strongest ghost soldiers he had created. "You are mistaken, Father Jin Huk," Vun Kan shouted because he had summoned something even stronger than himself. "This is the biggest mistake of a summoner. Are you angry now?" Jin Huk teased him and put on the Dr. B mask. He needed a worthy opponent when he put this mask on. Vun Kan had been waiting for this day for a long time. He would destroy Jin Huk and gain his freedom. He summoned a bunch of ghost soldiers to fight him while Jin Huk used the power of the mask before him. These ghost souls were slow as snails. It turned out this was how Haru saw everything in the blink of an eye. Jin Huk eliminated the ghost soldiers and rushed towards Vun Kan, who was still grinning. Although he was a bit weak now, people used to call him the Death Star. Vun Kan tasted Jin Huk's punch. He told him to stay calm and listen to him. Haru was worried since Vun Kan was older and was punched by Jin Huk. He was ruthless because a soul would not be destroyed just by physical damage. Vun Kan rubbed his face. That rule only applies to ordinary people. As for him being punched still hurt, Haru asked Jin Huk about the power of the mask. He felt everything was much slower, as if he had become the greatest martial artist. But Haru thought that phenomenon was just a minor effect of the mask. A minor effect? Jin Huk was surprised. He was that strong, but it was only part of the effect. What is the mask actually for? Haru explained that it was for battlefield foresight, so the user can almost predict the future actions of the enemy. However, Jin Huk didn't know how to do it like someone born with skills like Haru. Jin Huk laughed. He had forgotten that Haru was considered a genius even in doctor. Even asking her to teach him would be difficult. Haru was curious if he felt dizzy. Because an untrained doctor using skills would mostly feel dizzy or have a headache, even Haru was the same. She was worried, thinking he couldn't activate the mask's skills. Haru's words felt like pouring salt into his wounds. Jin Huk was too excited to become an unimaginable strong person on the second floor, but it seemed everything was going off track. Still, he was very grateful to Haru for giving him this powerful mask. While the two were happily chatting, a gloomy ghost was sitting silently. Vun Kan didn't know what karma he had created to fall into Jin Huk's hands, even though he was the strongest ghost. At that moment, Haru approached to check on Vun Kan. He hugged her tightly, thanking her very much, unlike that bastard. Her presence here would make him feel better, but Haru only came to announce one thing: they needed her to reverse it. In contrast to Haru, Jin Huk threatened Vun Kan that if he couldn't do it, he would turn him into a soul ball. Swallowing his anger, Vun Kan could only curse silently in his heart and obey his orders. In the end, the mission was completed smoothly from the second floor to the fifth. Rumors about a person suddenly appearing as a ghost with a demon mask are spreading everywhere. Although he can control everything, she still goes on. But from the fifth floor, there will be goblins who know how to use extremely potent poison needles, and they are very cunning, enjoying ambushing others like this. While Jin Huk was dealing with his sadness, a poison needle flew towards Haru, who coldly dealt with it in a heartbeat, her terrifying face asking, "Do you dare to disturb Appa?" The goblin wanted to run, but it was too late. Vunken had already ordered the ghostly soldier to handle it, and Vunken jumped down praising Haru, but she muttered that it had attacked Appa. "I should have split it in half." Vunken startled, sensing something was off with her chilling smile. Vunken immediately asked about Harry's situation, and she suddenly came to her senses as if nothing had happened. She didn't even realize she was holding a sword and laughing like a madwoman. At this moment, Jin Huk had everything prepared for tonight. They would quickly face the second wave of monsters. The night before going to the 5th floor, Jin Huk had a cozy evening by the fire with two people discussing the monster wave on the 5th floor. Vunken saw the chance for them to take down the Overlord was quite low, because they didn't know when it would appear, but this time, Jin Huk felt it was unnecessary to hunt the Overlord because he knew how to create a wave. Of course, Vunken and Haru couldn't believe it, because if he could create it himself, the entire tower would have been submerged in the wave already. Jin Huk accidentally discovered a crack at the boundary between the 3rd and 4th floors. Each floor has a central area for monsters to appear. If they could find that area and channel mana into it, monsters would appear like a wave. Vunken didn't expect Jin Huk to have even more cunning tricks than him, but this was the first time he was doing such a thing. The monsters on the 300th floor and above were on a different level. Compared to the goblins, even if they were the 4 great beasts, they couldn't directly confront them once the wave rose. When they wanted to use it, they didn't know, but when they knew, they couldn't use it. However, Jin Huk had another way. They would create as many monster waves as possible to strengthen quickly. That night in the town, there was suddenly a tremor from a gate. Signaling an unexpected monster wave, the tower climbers couldn't prepare in time. The goblins poured out like a storm without notice, attacking the newbie village. So they had no choice but to run. Those who were hit by their poison needles couldn't move. They would be paralyzed for a long time. This blonde guy couldn't abandon his friends, but he also didn't have enough strength to fight against the goblins. His dream of climbing to the 10th floor was extinguished here. Just at that moment, a massive surge of mana descended, saving him. A cold voice told him to take the poisoned people to safety. He was the ghostly player, and everyone rejoiced at Jin Huk's appearance. Who would have thought the wave was created by him to save them, and then they would praise him to the skies? His mission would be easier to complete. Rise and fight! The powerful ghostly soldiers charged out, tearing apart the goblins. Vunken was clearly frustrated. He was the one who created them, yet Jin Huk took all the credit. It was truly the fate of a servant. Just then, an explosion rang out. Their ghostly soldiers were being burned in strange blue flames caused by the goblin priests. They attacked the ghostly soldiers easily. Causing Vunken to panic, Jin Huk shouted for him to be quiet. Everyone knew they had to deal with the priests first. So Haru was positioned on the rooftop and dove down like a god, appearing at just the right moment, making Vunken excited, not knowing who was climbing the tower. Jin Huk also joined the battle. This time, he used absorption to take away the power of the goblin priests who possessed flames that could attack souls. It was a waste to give such power to the priests. So he would take it and use it well. Jin Huk unleashed soul fire, incinerating the goblins, not forgetting to praise Harry's cool performance. Harry smiled, but her smile was very strange. Startling Jin Huk, her sword glowed, creating a vortex with overwhelming power. Jin Huk knew that sword was not ordinary, but he also didn't know what the hell was happening. The scene before him astonished him. Haru was in a state of a samurai warrior with a cruel face. Haru's actions were unpredictable. She turned her back and attacked Jin Huk. Her slash was so sharp that the surrounding houses were cut like tofu, and the goblins froze in shock at the scene of destruction. Under the overwhelming power of Harry, Jin Huk's staff broke in half. Luckily, he managed to sit down, otherwise he would have become half of Master Gojo. What the hell is that sword that can destroy an entire village in the blink of an eye? Haru seemed to lose control as she continuously attacked Jin Huk with a slash that could blow everything behind him apart. He took off his mask, but not only did Haru not recognize him, she attacked even faster. Jin Huk had to use his familiar staff to block her strikes, but it was no match for Haru's strength. He was thrown to the ground, and Vunken rushed over to check on him, unsure if he was happy or sad. Jin Huk communicated telepathically with the spirit. He had just been blown back 8 meters and hadn't even recovered, feeling as if he was facing the last elite warrior of the Kabi clan while most of the monsters in the wave had been eliminated. So Vunken would take care of the rest. But for now, he had to show Harry what a festival was. Jin Huk put on the mask and attacked instinctively, climbing the 599 floors that were screaming. To him, that dangerous sword would slice him apart if he wasn't careful in this tower. There are no friendships or enemies that are eternal. Although Haru's fate was not good, he was not a compassionate person. Jin Huk decided he would eliminate Haru here, but Haru's innocent face made him pause for a moment. Haru used her hands to block Jin Hyuk's axe, and he was confused. It seemed this was the combat eye that Haru mentioned. It felt like she was 100 times faster than him, and just like that, Jin Hyuk was slashed retreating as he summoned the skeleton soldiers that had been dormant after the goblin wave rose. The pile of bones surrounded Haru, holding her tightly, but she destroyed them in an instant. Her swordsmanship was so fast that Jin Hyuk couldn't even see the strength behind it. This overwhelming strength left Jin Hyuk with no way to win. Another explosion occurred and Jin Hyuk backed away. He suddenly noticed something strange. Haru's eyes were bleeding and her face was extremely uncomfortable. Was she exhausted? He suddenly remembered Haru mentioning recovering after Dr. B used his skill. If that was the case, she couldn't use the combat eye anymore and it was his chance. Jin Hyuk jumped down and lured Haru after him. The successful provocation made Haru jump down at the same time. Jin Hyuk summoned a goblin zombie and shot out a poison needle. Even if it was Dr. B, he wouldn't be able to resist this paralyzing substance. Without the combat eye, how could she avoid this? Haru screamed as the space around her seemed to freeze. She sliced through 2 goblins, which made Jin Hyuk irritated. Next, it was his turn. Even if he could dodge, his speed was no match for Haru's. She was excited as the chance to win was right in front of her, when suddenly something unexpected shot out a poison needle embedded in Haru's body while she was completely unaware. Jin Hyuk still had a goblin zombie in reserve. If it weren't for her combat eye being on cooldown, this plan would have been impossible. Haru trembled with anger as Jin Hyuk plotted against her. He shot her through her blind spot. After the poison needles hit, Haru fainted, returning to her normal state. Jin Hyuk breathed a sigh of relief. Luckily, the dose of poison was just enough to knock her out. Since the poison had penetrated, he was also losing feeling in his hands. Jin Hyuk ordered the goblin to get him some poison. Jin Hyuk was indeed an omnivorous creature, even eating poison. Thanks to that, he had a resistance to paralysis poison. He had to admit that Harry possessed a very annoying power that made it difficult for him even in the rain. Haru stood with the spirit sword in a blood-red, undefined space. A stranger took the sword and spoke. This time, she was the master of this Dragon Slayer sword, right? He was surprised by Haru's age, not yet 18. He seemed to be a Kabi clan member, but half right, half wrong. Haru didn't understand his words and was met with the blade of the sword at her throat. The person warned Haru that next time if she drew him from the sheath, without preparation, she would be the one in danger. Just then, Haru woke up on Jin Hyuk's back. They had arrived at the village on the 6th floor. "Why are you carrying me?" Haru blushed and asked. Jin Hyuk took her to an inn to explain. After checking their equipment and stamina on the 6th floor, they would head straight to the 10th floor where there would be large cities at every 10 floors. To enter the city, they had to fight the boss. Haru had already heard about that great brain warrior. Considering their combat power, it was a monstrous insect. Haru looked forward to recovering to fight, but Jin Hyuk decided they would not go together anymore. "What do you mean, Appa? Are you abandoning me?" Haru panicked and shouted, but Jin Hyuk didn't mean it that way. Because Haru had forgotten that the sword on the 5th floor was a demon sword that could rival the mind-corroding sword while it granted her unimaginable power. So Haru attacked him after losing her mind. If she kept relying on that power, she would fail. Before they reached the 100th floor, Haru had to train not to use the sword's power and climb to the 10th floor by herself. Haru felt a bit disappointed but remained determined. She would try to become stronger to be with Jin Hyuk. That day when they parted, Jin Hyuk lent Haru his cloak because there was no need to flaunt that she was a doctor. While exploring alone, he told her not to rush because he needed to deal with a few things on the 10th floor, so he would stay there for a while. Vunkan felt a bit sad without Haru by his side. No matter how long it took, Haru would try to return to them quickly. A few days later on the 9th floor, there was a purge of the snail gang, and the culprit was none other than Jin Hyuk. These snails were just big and bulky, no different from goblins. After taking a kick from Jin Hyuk, one fell to the ground, foaming at the mouth. Vunkan thought he would have some free time because Jin Hyuk was fighting, but he reminded him to extract their souls. It seemed that creating monster waves had become their natural habit. Vunkan thoroughly enjoyed this. Moreover, he didn't believe that Jin Hyuk could be so cold. He hadn't mentioned Harry once since they broke up. What the hell are you talking about? Jin Huk complained, believing in Harry enough. If he thought she had failed, then she wouldn't have accepted to be their ally. A person with power and motivation, and now Vun Kan had to run the deadline carrying more brains for Jin Huk. Creating monster waves was not enough. Vun Kan was frustrated and couldn't believe he was being mistreated after being thrown into the hole. You have no respect for adults at all. Don't you have parents? Yes, I don't have them. So what? Jin Huk calmly asked back, leaving Vun Kan speechless. He was a kid who grew up in an orphanage with Choi Gyung-hoon. Vun Kan gasped. Then he placed a hand on his shoulder, showing sympathy. All right now, I understand what you've been through. The expression on his face made Jin Huk's skin crawl. After achieving the brain slaughter, they went to the training room on the 10th floor. A board appeared, making Vun Kan curious. He had never seen anything like it before. It was a board showing the fastest mission completion time, all in about 1 minute. It seemed Vun Kan's name wasn't here, so Jin Huk teased him. Vun Kan was annoyed, but he also wasn't on the 6th record list, so today he decided to break the 6th record. Ha ha, sounds good. Vun Kan was very excited. While waiting for the training task to prepare, Jin Huk discussed strategies with Vun Kan. He would use the soul weapon to prevent the boss from moving as soon as it appeared. Vun Kan prepared in a second and was ready. Jin Huk slammed his hand on the floor, summoning the magic spear. He would show what the power of an omnipotent master was like. Jin Huk summoned elemental spells that were penetrating, sharp, resilient, deadly, and not lacking a bit of magic power, creating a destructive spear. The dark demonic army of the old man. The main character was waiting for the boss to appear. As soon as the great brain warrior was summoned, Vun Kan ordered his pets to bind its limbs, and Jin Huk just had to fire. The giant spear pierced through, causing its head to fly 8 meters away. The massive, headless body fell to the ground. The entire process took less than a second. Jin Huk entered the name of the demon face, contributing to his fame before he reached the 100th floor. On the 8th floor, everyone began discussing the highest 6th record on the 10th floor, the familiar name of the demon face, as a cheer for Harry. She reminded herself to try even harder to catch up with the two, while Vulcan was enjoying the thrill of breaking the 6th record of the 4 great races. Even the strongest spirit masters have never accomplished this, my disciple. Jin Huk felt annoyed by the man's arm around him. They still had things to do on this 10th floor. While waiting for Harry in an office, a man with blonde hair began to take notice of the name Phantom when looking at the announcement board for the 6th record of the 10th floor. The city on the 10th floor is the first major city that tower climbers set foot in, and is also where the teleportation gate to Earth is located, thus those who give up or stop climbing the tower. Obtaining commercial rights and building the largest city within the first 100 floors of the tower, they decided to sell all remaining items and buy a bit of medicine and other supplies. Although they had lifted the auction ban, the city's economy was still thriving, with some people living an ordinary life here. Therefore, they could not buy all the necessary items from the auction houses along the street. Both encountered vendors from Goldrich whose popularity piqued Vulcan's curiosity. Goldrich is the leading company in this tower. Established a few years ago, Goldrich is the name of the richest person in this tower. No one knows his real name, but he possesses an unimaginable amount of gold. It is said that most of the items exchanged in the tower have passed through his hands. Jin Huk's task now is to find a sponsor. No need to look far, the sponsor's logo has been right in front of Vulcan all this time. Vulcan was surprised one after another. Jin Huk had targeted Goldrich as his sponsor. The two entered Goldrich's company, where anything of monetary value could be bought and sold. After taking a waiting ticket, they went to counter number 3, managed by Haitian. Jin Huk needed to buy something. But when he asked for the name, he did not speak, but only presented the mask. Dr. Bi-han was startled to recognize it, but Jin Huk signaled him to be quiet. There was a reason for this. He had to walk around with this mask on. Haitian understood the hint after that. Jin Huk handed him 300 gold that he had obtained from the wave. With this money, he wanted to meet Goldrich. Haitian was even more startled than before in his eyes. Jin Huk was no different from a reckless outlaw of the tower. He immediately argued that everything could be bought and sold here. Haziel had to apologize, as this deal could not be completed. One Goldrich was very busy. 2 Jin Huk's amount of money was too little insignificant compared to Goldrich's time value. Duyen Hu had already guessed that everything could not be finalized. So he asked what price he had to pay to meet the manager here. After leaving, Vulcan had to admit he was indeed a lunatic to make a request to a mere employee to meet the company president, but there was no other way for him to meet Goldrich, so Vulcan could not tease him any further. The two went to the manager's office, calling him a puppet. Jin Huk wanted to meet Goldrich, but it seemed he was not here. The manager helplessly reminded him that the amount of money he offered was not enough to see Goldrich. Jin Huk then made a bold decision. First call Goldrich here, and surely he would become his sponsor once they met. The manager sighed and stood up. He had heard many rumors about him, but could not expect him to mention the company president. He, in a normal manner, with his marionette characteristics, could freely control those caught in his strings. However, Jin Huk was not an ordinary person. He grabbed his invisible strings, neutralizing that transformation skill. Although it was surprisingly effective, even with the tower climber managing 180 floors, he still tried a new trick to bring both to another space, confident that he wouldn't know where this was. The mental realm, Jin Huk said, is an endless realm, created by separating the soul and mind from the body. The manager did not know how he knew about the mental realm, but maintaining the same attitude here forced Jin Huk to use his experiences and soul power to fight if Jin Huk defeated him in a match. Then he would try to arrange a meeting with Goldrich. Jin Huk was entangled by his threads, but he was even more arrogant when it came to discussing experience and soul power. Then he would have to call him great-grandfather. Jin Huk tensed his muscles, causing his threads to snap. His properties had no effect on him. The manager did not understand why he was only at the 10th floor, but his power. His spirit must at least reach the 100th floor to be achieved. However, he still did not believe he could not win. The manager snapped his fingers, causing waves to ripple from the water. The puppets rose up, crowding like the Qing army. This was a puppet legion in the mental realm. Experience is power. These are the puppets he obtained from experience to climb to the 100th floor. He designed them to become stronger when infused with mana, and they were as strong as those who climbed to the 50th floor. The winner has been predetermined since the moment you entered the mental realm. The arrogant manager commanded the puppet legion to attack Jin Huk, who was overwhelmed and submerged in the water. The confident manager left them to torment him a little longer because these injuries would not appear in real life. Suddenly behind him, a column of water surged up. He did not expect that Jin Huk could use magic, and not only that, but also summon necromancers. A boss from the 100th floor in his mental realm. Jin Huk returned in his familiar attire from 15 years ago. Even in the mental realm, summoning a soul took quite some time. Compared to him, a puppet army sounded cool. But he seemed to have never seen a real army. Today, Jin Huk would show him what a real army looks like, not just a necromancer. Jin Huk even summoned their furnace, just as he said the winner had been predetermined since entering the mental realm. Those ordinary puppets could not compare to his exquisite soul. The manager looked over Jin Huk's army and recognized only a few characters by name, while the other souls seemed to be bosses from the 100th floor and above. He finally had to say the familiar line, "Who are you?" Jin Huk did not answer, but led his army forward. Crushing him before the overwhelming fear, the manager returned to reality. Since when was he not the one controlling the mental realm? There was only one possibility, which was that Jin Huk could control the mental realm. Jin Huk approached him, telling him not to cry anymore, but to fulfill their promise, which was a meeting with Goldrich. Jin Huk handed him a letter addressed to Goldrich. He knew he had lost, but if Goldrich did not respond to the letter, he did not know what else to do. Jin Huk was confident that Goldrich would definitely respond, then left the company. The manager and Hansian respectfully bowed to him. The sun had set, so they suggested going home, but Jin Huk did not know the meaning of rest. Now they needed to go to another place. Waiting for Goldrich to arrive was too boring, and he was a person who disliked boredom. At the headquarters of the White Swan Association on the 1st floor, two girls were chatting. One who had climbed to the 57th floor said she would buy new equipment when she completed this month's goal. But they needed to eat first before continuing. The blonde girl did not understand why they had to sit here. What kind of crazy person would storm into the main entrance of the National Association? Just as she finished speaking, the door swung open and the two girls immediately bowed and asked what he needed. Jin Huk pretended to laugh foolishly, saying that climbing the tower was too hard. He wanted to join the association. "Oh, really? You scared me." The two girls breathed a sigh of relief when Jin Huk only came to join. Suddenly, the two remembered that if they could invite a rookie for the members of the association, the shoe world would gain a significant influence. So, Both of them immediately wore genuine smiles, inviting Jin Huk in and asking if he had anyone to introduce him to yet. Jin Huk pretended to be clueless, saying he had no one to introduce him here because fate had brought him here. The two girls thought to themselves that he still seemed like a naive rookie who didn't know anything. So they decided to pay more attention to him, asking him to show off his skills. Jin Huk borrowed one shoe from each girl, then directly used 2 fingers to bend it, performing a gentle display that left the 2 girls in awe. Jin Huk said he could also perform a few basic spells, specifically a palm magic, where a flame was summoned from a magic circle. The 2 girls exclaimed in surprise, "You really have many talents." Both turned away, whispering about what his skills were, which didn't matter because the previous performance was too impressive. If they could recruit him under their banner, he might just become an idol. Moreover, Jin Huk had caught the eye of the blonde girl because he was exactly her type, while Jin Huk was just playing around to buy time for the next act. Suddenly, a strange noise erupted as a person rushed in, panicking, to announce that an evil spirit was rampaging and destroying the village, targeting everyone who had climbed to the 50th floor. Those who had ascended were summoned, so the 2 girls had to leave with regret before departing. The blonde girl reminded Jin Huk to stay put and wait for them as the door closed, and Jin Huk put on his mask. Dr. B returned in his masked identity while the villagers were in chaos fleeing from the shopping area. Their attacks had no effect on the evil spirit. Not only that, but this evil spirit was also quite bizarre as he was trying his best to appear fierce, yet his face seemed made for comedy. He knew he looked ridiculous, because he hadn't played these ridiculous roles for 10 eras. All of this was caused by Jin Huk. While the evil spirit was causing chaos inside the guild, Jin Huk was also creating a ruckus. He took down the guards and searched for something. A sleeping soldier had to step outside due to the noise, and as soon as he stepped out, he bumped into Jin Huk's demon mask, nearly scaring him to death. Jin Huk grabbed him to ask for information. He wanted a list of other guilds linked to the Holy Kingdom and their exact locations, as he planned to find and destroy them. "Do you think you will be safe after taking down 2 out of 9? You made an enemy of yourself, huh?" Jin Huk thanked him for worrying about his own safety when he couldn't even save himself, then choked him until he could barely breathe. He tried to point to the papers on the table. Jin Huk checked them, noting the names of the henchmen of the Elleon brothers. Jin Huk burned everything and left. He would make each of their henchmen kneel before him, and finally he would get to the Elleon brothers. Meanwhile, the blond man was sitting reading a report from the 10th floor branch of a puppet when suddenly a letter fell out, making him wonder why there was a separate letter sent alongside the report. After reading the letter, he angrily crumpled it up, wondering how you could know about this. Meanwhile, the White Swallow Guild was desperately putting out fires, and all witnesses at the scene had perished. Guild leader Bak Julio began to suspect Jin Huk and interrogated the 2 girls. The blonde girl described Jin Huk to him, mentioning he was male, slender, handsome, with a high nose, but her sister thought he was ugly and had a big nose. The 2 girls looked at each other, realizing they had fallen victim to Jin Huk's illusion magic. After finishing his work, the exhausted Vunkan returned to receive a bland compliment from Jin Huk. He even mocked him as people were spreading rumors about a terrifying ghost appearing. Vunkan, frustrated, changed the subject to Jin Huk, wondering if he had successfully set the fire. Of course, Jin Huk arrogantly recounted that even though it was only low-level magic, it was effective in this situation. Anyone who met him would remember he had a slightly different appearance, but Vunkan was curious to see him return empty-handed, because all the information about other guilds was already in his head. "Okay, you are the best," Vunkan said helplessly. Just then, there was a knock at the door, making him alert since they hadn't called for room service. Jin Huk put on his mask and slowly approached the door. After counting to 3, Vunkan threw out chains to bind the stranger. The plan was easily executed because the one knocking was Hansian, a staff member living day by day. Today, he came to announce that Goldrich had landed on their 10th floor branch, then specifically invited Jin Huk to meet a waiting army, but Goldrich was nowhere to be seen, making him cautious. At that moment, a voice rang out. "I don't know how you found out the contents of the letter, but I commend your arrogance and courage. You dare to show your face to those who know about this. You are not allowed to exist in the tower." Goldrich, the man with golden hair, stepped out. Jin Huk smiled with satisfaction. It had been a long time since he last saw Goldrich. After speaking, Goldrich left. Leaving a small test for Jin Huk, the army quickly formed a defensive line, thinking he would attack to relieve the pressure, but the signal was met with a straight punch to the face. "This is the price to pay for revealing one's plans to the enemy." The army lost its captain while Jin Huk easily swept past them. Next, Goldrich would be his opponent. Goldrich turned his back, a pile of gold coins bursting forth countless and uncountable. Jin Huk could recognize this as Goldrich's golden power, the ability to control gold with his mana. But that wouldn't restrain him for long. Goldrich still had another trick, gathering most of the gold in this branch into a tsunami wave. Just getting hit by that would be enough to send Jin Huk down the hole. A loud explosion accompanied by gold coins falling everywhere. Goldrich coldly muttered, "So he hasn't met his end yet." In a speed battle, he was always the victor. Goldrich pulled the spear away with a nonchalant attitude. "Do you think saying that will scare me? If I wanted to, I could have killed someone like you already. You can't kill me," Jin Huk confidently stated, as he was unaware of the information in the letter, and the army wanted to capture him alive. But he would tell Goldrich about the source of the information, so he led Jin Huk to the office. It was indeed a magnificent room. Those with money really have it good, Jin Huk sarcastically remarked. Goldrich closed the door and continued to move his hands and feet with Jin Huk. His golden ability completely separated them from the outside world, so neither god nor devil knew anything. Now Goldrich wanted to know who told him that he was the master of the auction. The auction was a massive system where individuals could freely exchange items. Within the tower's confines, however, this system did not come about naturally. It was created by Goldrich. If this truth were exposed, the foundation of the entire Goldrich company would collapse. That is why he was driven to madness. Jin Huk pretended to be oblivious, saying, "It's just burying in Vietnam who said anything. So if you lose a limb, it's still just burying, right?" Goldrich used pure gold, forming a gigantic axe to attack Jin Huk in moments like this. He didn't need to strike, just a punch was enough to shatter the golden axe. Goldrich was astonished to witness a soul soldier, as only a necromancer could summon souls. And that meant Jin Huk's identity had been confirmed. He took off his mask and said, "It's time to settle the debt, Predator William." He didn't expect him to still be alive after 15 had passed. Jin Huk sat down and recounted everything to Goldrich. Vun Khan nearby also eavesdropped a bit, not expecting their relationship to be this deep. Yet Goldrich still couldn't believe he had resurrected. Of course, even he couldn't believe he was still alive. This time, Jin Huk's target was a bit of Goldrich's company resources. They could create a sponsorship contract between the two parties. You speak as if Goldrich is your company. Goldrich grumbled, but fundamentally it wasn't wrong. For someone without the talent to be a businessman who would sell him items from higher floors of the tower. He was indeed the member who contributed the most to building Goldrich's foundation, and was also the largest shareholder. This outrageous pride made Goldrich partially trust that Jin Huk was indeed real. However, even so, when the contract was signed, Jin Huk still needed to give him something. Jin Huk decided to sell all the information he had gathered and decoded to Goldrich. "I will set a price for it after listening," Goldrich said. "If the 9 stars eliminate Jin Huk, it means there will be a mastermind behind everything, as those guys all have their own egos. So it would be difficult for them to obey each other, proving that there was a force strong enough to control and command them, no one else but the 4 kings of the tower." Goldrich was astonished when Jin Huk mentioned the 4 kings. They wanted to protect their supremacy over other species, so if another race succeeded, Goldrich was astonished when Jin Huk mentioned the 4 royal families who wanted to protect their supremacy over other species, so if another race succeeded. As Leo ascends to higher floors, their power and influence will significantly diminish. This forces them to either climb to the top of the tower themselves or eliminate those who can climb higher. Those who accept to join will be appointed as the rulers of a floor. However, Goldrich is not very trusting because he is the only victim. Jin Huk mentions the Oni village on the 100th floor where there is only one survivor from that tragedy. No one else but Haru, a young Oni who is training diligently to fight against the great brain warrior, has yet to overcome the challenge of the 10th floor. To reunite with Haru, and Vunkan Haru is determined to become even stronger. Why does she keep complaining? Doesn't she just need to use me? The spirit in the sword keeps appearing. Whispering in Haru's ear, he knows she wants to meet Jin as soon as possible. So she just needs to use him, and the brain warrior is just a tool. However, Haru is determined not to use the power of the dragon sword because she promised Jin Huk that she would become stronger on her own and not rely on any other power. After hearing the story, Goldrich gradually deduces that their target is Haru and the sword. To eliminate her, they are not hesitant to wipe out an entire species. In other words, they are carefully selecting their target. Goldrich cannot believe this, as it could completely change the foundation of the tower, but what he says makes an unusual amount of sense. He is extremely conflicted. Jin Huk says that his goal is revenge. He will eliminate all of them without sparing anyone, including the 9 stars or those who support the 4 royal families. This includes those from the 4 royal families who slaughtered Goldrich's family. After their conversation, Goldrich unlocks the barrier and Ban jumps in curious to ask questions. Even the 9-tailed fox wonders if he likes men. This annoys him, but the good news is that Goldrich has decided to buy that information, on the condition that he must prove himself right now. Jin Huk sighs. This guy is really stubborn, as a merchant trust with Goldrich is also an asset. He cannot trade based solely on a little trust. Jin Huk has to turn to Ban for help to prove his identity, the price being a handshake, but he takes advantage of the situation and demands 3 handshakes after completion. Ban spams a notification to Goldrich that he is the person he thought of taking all of Ban's honor as a guarantee, so Goldrich has no reason to refuse anymore. I will trust you. It is a pleasure to meet you, Demon Mask. Goldrich extends his hand and Jin Huk does the same. He is sure that one day they will be able to call each other by their real names instead of just the 2 nicknames they have now, as long as anything that can be bought with money Goldrich can retrieve for Jin Huk. And he needs all kinds of weapons that can be used in this tower, and a lot of ammunition. After hearing this, Goldrich feels a heavy weight on his head. As a necromancer, is he going to sell weapons? Jin Huk gently flexes his master-level versatile profession, causing Goldrich to panic, not expecting such a profession to exist. Jin Huk flexes a bit more about its effects. For example, it enhances all his stats. Even weapons he has never used feel familiar to him, as if he had known them for years. Although a bit jealous, Goldrich knows for sure that he will be stronger than in the past. Of course, he is weak now, but the future will be different. So what he needs to do is to enhance Jin Huk's abilities. Goldrich orders the puppet manager to gather and buy all the weapons on the 10th floor under the name of another company, then package them for VIP customer Jin Huk. After about 10 minutes, the manager returns with a cloak, but it is not an ordinary cloak. It is a mobile storage cloak. Now Goldrich has something to fake. The name of this cloak is Dao Phi. It connects to a secondary space that can hold many inanimate objects like a large warehouse with temperature and size. The color can also be customized according to the user's wishes, and there is a protective spell. If he has accessories inside, they will automatically transfer to his items. This is an extremely rare item in the tower, so Goldrich hopes he will take care of it carefully. You should be careful, Jin Huk says, because who knows, he might swing his hand too wildly. Causing Goldrich to go bankrupt, the scene shifts as Seong-tae's trio returns through the space portal. Although they have no achievements, it is already fortunate to have kept their lives. Before reaching the 10th floor, they had already spent all their money, so how could they continue to climb the tower? Don't worry. The White Heron Guild has someone on the 10th floor. Seong-tae arrogantly said that as long as they meet his brother, they will have more money to climb the tower, remember Jin Huk. He was even more frustrated because he was threatened and undermined by his brother, so he would prepare for a bloody revenge after getting the money. In less than 10 minutes, their faces looked as if they had poor digestion. In front of them was the dilapidated house of the White Heron Guild. The members had evacuated to the 30th floor, and Seong-tae's brother had also fainted, disconnected with no money or skills. At this rate, they wouldn't even make it past the 20th floor, let alone the 30th. Seeing the car, they fell silent, so the other 2 started criticizing him for doing nothing all day. Aside from bragging about the White Heron Guild, he had no skills at all. Hearing them chatter, Seong-tae just wanted them to shut their mouths. If he had no skills, they were just a bunch of useless leeches. Taking this opportunity, he left the worthless scum behind. Suddenly, a small, trembling fox approached, and Seong-tae quickly waved his hand to shoo it away. If you're hungry, we don't have any food, so get lost. The fox approached and sniffed the legs of the motorcycle, which annoyed him. He kicked it away, causing the fox to get seriously injured. He was feeling irritated and decided to vent his anger on it. Without mercy, he tortured the small, severely injured body of the fox. It cried out but was beaten to exhaustion, leaving only faint whimpers while Seong-tae's voice still echoed. My life is so wrong. All the idiots are swarming around me. My luck is as bad as a pot's bottom. A dagger suddenly flew through his calf, and Seong-tae couldn't even comprehend what had just happened. Then a wave of pain surged. Jin Huk slowly emerged from the shadows and asked who he was. I am the one who is about to become the master of the fox you just trampled on. 5 minutes ago, Jin Huk and Van Can were strolling down the street. He was heading to the tower to change his class to gain spiritual power. Van Can didn't quite understand because he was already a master of spirits. And because of Jin Huk's class, it was like a flaw since it resembled that of a sorcerer and had the memories of a past life but hadn't fully utilized his magical power yet. Right now, he still didn't have spiritual power through cultivation. Van Can hadn't even thought about this situation. However, for now, Jin Huk decided to rest and spend the money of Goldrich. Suddenly, the nine-tailed fox sensed something. The guy immediately pointed to a small alley while the nine-tailed fox was pleading for help because its child was in danger, which led to Jin Huk taking one of Seong-Tai's legs. Indeed, as a supporting character, the opportunity came but couldn't be grasped. Jin Huk couldn't believe it. He would be able to see the child of the nine-tailed fox, a legendary creature, in a place like this. Additionally, there was a mission attached to rescue that child. It was a disciple of the neutral god, and after rescuing it, he needed to take good care of it, and he would receive a reward in the form of fox items and increased friendliness with the nine-tailed fox. Seong-Tae looked at the mask and recognized him as the demon mask. Jin Huk pretended not to know and asked, "Have I seen you before? Is that how you intend to provoke me?" Seong-Tae ordered his two lackeys to ambush Jin Huk, but he vanished in an instant, leaving the two confused. Jin Huk had already picked up the small fox in his arms. He stepped on it without knowing who it was. This would be the last time they could open their mouths to speak. CEO T didn't care who the fox was. He decided to chop off his limbs for revenge. Jin Huk asked the nine-tailed fox for its opinion. It said, "Please send them back to the Earth Mother." Jin Huk didn't intend to do that, but since they liked to head into danger, he returned the leg to Seong-Yeon, turning it into a fire corpse. One leg that neatly dealt with the three ignorant quacks. Jin Huk took the small fox home, but he didn't know what to do with it. First, he would name it because the name of the nine-tailed fox's child was too long. If he shortened it to 2 words, it would become Little Fox. It's not bad. But I advise you to be careful because as it grows, it will definitely bore a hole in your skull. If it were Van, he would showcase his naming ability from countless years of experience, implying that the bright, shining fox should be called Ho-Rang. The great name he came up with made the atmosphere awkward, and Van Kantan shouted in anger, "If you don't like it, just say it!" Jin Huk saw it was the two-tailed fox, so he quickly called it Miho, dismissing the common name he thought of knowing the fox wouldn't like it. But who would have known that Miho would show such delight, leaving Van Can speechless? The mission to rescue Miho was accomplished. Miho took out a fox mask and handed it to Jin Huk. When he used it, he would gain the abilities of a wolf, and the mask's power would increase with its owner's strength. It was similar to Oni's mask. If this was the ability of a fox, then its charm was the best, as there was no better skill to trap an opponent than the nine-tailed fox reminding him. The mission was only half complete. The other half was to enhance Miho's vitality by feeding it 999 pieces of fresh liver. 999 pieces were a fresh problem, and it was a bigger issue. He would have to hunt for the ingredients himself, but considering the value of this mask, it was understandable. Moreover, there were many benefits to gaining the favor of the fox. Van Can used the excuse of going out to patrol to avoid being bothered by Jin Huk when the sun began to rise. They would go to the tower to change their profession, so Jin Huk warned him in advance not to waste time. Now let's take a night stroll around the town. Just as he predicted, everything was very different from when he climbed the tower. Suddenly, a familiar feeling washed over Van Can as he looked at the man with 2 horns. He was a dragon with such massive mana that the air around him was thick. He sighed and muttered, "I want to kill all the dragons." Van Can was surprised that dragons were such narcissistic creatures. Just as they love their family and kind, they are the proudest among the 4 great divine beasts. Thus, when a dragon breathes out that statement, it signifies that no dragon will survive. Van Can did not expect the dragons to flood to the 10th floor so soon. The climbers looked at each other, muttering that the dragon had been here for a few days, already rambling about things no one understood. His time here left Van Can confused. If that's the case, the dragons still haven't acted. Suddenly, the dragon looked at Van Can, making him uneasy. He had sensed his mana. The dragon exclaimed, "It's you, the useless shadow." Acting foolishly while wandering around what a useless shadow, Van Can could let Jin Huk bother him, but he couldn't allow others to insult him. He went down to regain his honor. "Hello, little dragon?" He scowled and shouted, "Do you dare to call me a dragon? Are you tired of living?" The next morning at the tower to change professions, Van Can was late again, making Jin Huk annoyed. He didn't even reply to messages, so he had to go inside alone. A young man named Ken stepped out to greet him. He was the one in charge of this tower. "This place is as quiet as a deserted temple," Jin Huk said, as not many people awakened mana on the 10th floor, so there were no flies, just mosquitoes. Jin Huk borrowed the Soul Summoner's room. But first, to prove that he had awakened mana, he needed to channel mana into the crystal ball in Ken's hand. Jin Huk placed his hand gently and released his mana. Ken struggled to hold the crystal ball, but just a few seconds later it cracked, causing Ken to fall to the ground. Meanwhile, Van Kan was still fighting with the dragon, but not with Jin Huk. Therefore, both his mana and soul were limited. The arrogant dragon said, "How long do you intend to hide in that useless shadow? Come out and fight properly." Others, attracted by the fight, ran over to see. "Look at those horns. He is definitely a dragon," and being called a dragon by others made him furious. Van Kan didn't understand why he was so sensitive to the word dragon. But he was so sensitive to the word dragon as if his soul and body were separated, just like Jin Huk. Thus, the curiosity of a researcher within Van Kan arose. He used his soul as a weapon to see what was hidden inside that body of yours. Van Kan attacked, but he dodged. But it must be acknowledged that he is not a useless ghost. His spiritual power is a type of magic that absorbs souls instead of mana, a type of magic that even Jin Huk cannot use. This is the power of the strongest necromancer. That dragon will regret speaking ill of him as both sides fight chaotically. That dragon is just being sarcastic. It's not like he's going on a blind date to introduce himself like that. If he is using a weapon, then he will also use his sword. Since he introduced himself, he will also introduce his profile. I am Hendrick the Dragon Slayer. The title of Dragon Slayer is awarded to those who have succeeded. To conquer a dragon, a powerful soul like that being stuffed into the body of a dragon is truly a joke. Henry uses the dragon's breath to force him to separate. He sees that he is still young and inexperienced, so he becomes complacent. If his soul is truly that of a dragon slayer who has reached level 780, then even with Jin Huk here, there is no guarantee that they will win. So the only way is to trap him. Vulcan prepares to attack, but Hendricks will not let his cloak be burned a second time. Suddenly the hands of the spirit grip him tightly again. Following that is a gigantic attack. Hendricks grits his teeth and uses the 10,000 heavenly slash to cut off all attacks, but there is no time to react to his hand. Vulcan sees Henry being held by the giant spirit's hand. There is resistance, but it is insignificant. He breathes a sigh of relief, almost dying. He had to use all his soul and magical power. Perhaps this time will hold Henry back. Now is a good opportunity for him to escape quickly. Below, Henry finally breaks free. He remembers the name Vulcan. He promises that the next time they meet, he will shred his soul into 100 pieces. Meanwhile, Jin Huk is exploring the magical corridor that seems to stretch endlessly. While leading him, Ken is sweating profusely. Even though they have reached the 35th floor, he still feels nervous in front of someone who has climbed the 10th floor like Jin Huk, while Jin Huk thinks Ken is doing well. Making him feel comfortable, they finally arrive at the necromancer's room, which contains death potions and countless books. This is indeed the dream room of every necromancer. After Ken leaves, he begins to get to work. At this moment, Vulcan emerges from the ground, startling Miho. He wonders where he has been all this time. Vulcan, feeling embarrassed, should say that he was practicing some health exercises. Vulcan quickly changes the subject to Jin Huk's matters. He summons a few subordinates to work on drawing magical circles and lighting scented candles to create an atmosphere. While Jin Huk is working Vulcan, and Miho must step back. This could be Jin Huk's final command, so he instructs Vulcan to protect his body until he wakes up. Be careful. I will consume your body if you die. Vulcan says this, and only Jin Huk feels reassured as a ghostly soul is summoned from the circle. The magic enters Jin Huk's soul cup. Miho witnesses this scene and gasps. Vulcan has to comfort it. The powerful spirit is the essential realm of the system mage. The necromancer manipulates the soul like magic. The fastest way to awaken this power is in spirit form, which also means he is about to touch the realm of death. Jin Huk closes his eyes tightly. This is also the moment he has reached the inside of the realm of the formless. At the same time, lost souls appear. They need a complete body to resurrect. That is why Jin Huk lets Vulcan protect him. He immediately summons the soul soldiers. They must rescue the spirit prince from death. Vulcan uses the soul Aurora along with the soul soldiers to fight against the ghouls. Ken hears the noise and rushes in to check. The terrifying scene makes him freeze. Vulcan sees someone coming and immediately pulls them into the battle. Meanwhile, Miho is trembling, hiding in a corner, but in this corner, it sees a ghoul rushing toward Jin Huk. Ken recognizes it, but it is too late. Vulcan can only curse and activate the alarm to wake Jin Huk. Miho rushes in to block in front of Jin Hyuk's body, releasing a dazzling light. The other ghouls immediately halt. They do not know where Miho jumped out from. But the first feeling is that it is too cute. The little tail, the little hands, they are all defeated by Miho's cheesy cuteness. Even the soul soldiers fall before Miho's adorableness. This leaves Vulcan helpless. Not only that, but Ken the Gatekeeper also realizes that this is an enchantment, but it only controls the physical body. The power that can control even souls proves that the creature is endowed with divine blood and is not ordinary. Amidst the chaotic scene, a ghoul appears. Vun Kan can see he was once a very strong tower climber when he was alive. If he were to take over Jin Hyuk's body, it would be very dangerous. Vun Kan must stop him, but the effect of Miho's enchantment is fading. He is losing strength, and now I can only rely on Miho. Stay away, I don't care about your hairy demon. The ghost reaches out towards Jin Hyuk's body. Miho jumps up to approach him and emits a beam of light, but Miho only produces a small heart shape, not enough to enchant him. Vun can sprays a hardening glue. Could it be that he has run out of power? He shows no mercy and prepares to smash Miho. She closes her eyes to accept the pain, but nothing happens. A stream of magical energy flows through his arm, and Jin Hyuk finally wakes up. Now that demon is definitely dead. He screams, "Ah, hoo, my spirit body!" Jin Hyuk absorbs all the ghosts around here. They will be good materials for him to refine potions. As for him, he only needs to use one technique, the 10-finger spirit. The 10-finger pill spreads wide, shattering his spirit body. He even swings his hand in frustration, destroying the entire room. Vun can seize the method of collecting spiritual energy at his fingertips and shooting it out. Jin Hyuk is indeed powerful and so simple. Why didn't he think of this sooner? After finishing, he leaves a large empty space on the wall of the room. Ken is still sound asleep after the enchantment. The manager arrives and exclaims, "What the hell? What did you do in the tower?" Explaining would take too long, so Jin Hyuk won't explain. The manager comes here to deliver one of the items he requested but couldn't fit in the spatial bag, which are powerful poison vials of varying levels containing the energy of fire and ice. Containing the energy of water, Jin Hyuk is confused. These stones are only used for the dungeon exploration from the 100th floor. The manager is startled when he sees Jin Hyuk looking through him. This delivery is his last task as the branch manager of the 10th floor. From now on, he will return as a tower climber. It's all because he needs to become stronger as a merchant. The manager aims for the highest position, but he feels that both Jin Huk and Goldrich could lead to significant changes for this tower. And in that change, one cannot forget the most talented merchant who is also a tower climber of 100 floors by his own strength, just like him. Jin Hyuk sees he is also determined. Very similar to Goldrich back then. If he has the right abilities, Jin Hyuk will let him know about the plan with Goldrich. Of course he is very willing. After the manager leaves hunger strikes, Jin Hyuk decides he must replenish his energy with this pile of poison. This decision makes Vun can feel goosebumps. But his absorption ability is to transform the power of what he consumes into his own. Doesn't he wonder what kind of power these will bring him? A moment later, Ken opens his eyes tense as a bowstring, but everything has been handled and seems very safe. They only have one last risk, which is Jin Hyuk. He stuffs a piece of ice stone into his mouth, feeling as if he is eating 100 spicy noodles at the highest level all at once. The piece of ice stone is too large, so it takes some time for Jin Hyuk to fully swallow it. His absorption of ice and fire has reached its maximum, so the remaining part cannot be absorbed anymore. That night, Vulcan is transporting the pile of corpses that Jin Hyuk caused. He feels like he is being tortured. Jin Hyuk finally swallows all the poison, just like the fighting style of the Black Death. He must also be prepared to deal with emergencies, especially poison. One of the Black Death members is very knowledgeable about poison. If he had recognized his tricks, he wouldn't have been ambushed so badly after transporting all the corpses. Jin Hyuk feeds Miho a buffet of fresh hot liver. Vun can see she should learn the fighting style that the descendants of the Nine Tails should learn, but Jin Hyuk thinks she is still a baby. If calculated by human age, baby Miho with sharp teeth is gnawing on the corpses of the brains, making Jin Hyuk retract his opinion. Tonight she has only eaten 127 livers, but is already full. On the way, Van Can confided that he also wanted to shake up the city like him, but it was better to act mysteriously. Jin Huk guessed he intended to go and fight someone in the middle of the night. Because Van Can's powers were rising, he was just curious about who he would encounter. I had fought with the Long clan, and Van Can lightly recounted his achievements, of course, not mentioning how he ran away. Suddenly, Jin Huk was filled with killing intent. You seem to have a deep-seated grudge against the Dragon clan. Van Can quickly signaled him to calm down. He shouldn't drop bombs on the road. It wasn't intentional, but rather the after-effects of swallowing ice and fire. This made it hard for him to control himself. Van Can explained that the Dragon clan he encountered was not ordinary. After hearing the story, Jin Huk was extremely surprised. The soul and body were separated. Initially, Vulcan didn't believe it, but he was a typical example. Moreover, he also knew about the dragon-slaying warrior Hendrick. He started by practicing to slay dragons when he became a tower climber, systematically defeating the dragons he encountered or knowing their locations. Thus, he became a monster known as the dragon-slaying warrior. It was said that he had perished on the 700th or 800th floor. Based on what he said, it could also be a trap set by the royal family of the Dragon clan. If that's the case, then Jin Huk wanted to meet Hendrick once. He was too excited, so Jin Huk suddenly dropped a bomb about his engulfing characteristics as if it were a trick. Van Can thought it should be called a punishment. Engulfing would be more accurate, the toxic heat of the Han Stone. Now he needed to heal the internal injuries they caused, heal up and go meet the priest. Are you crazy? Jin Huk didn't want to be purified by that divine power like those spirits. But if he continued, he would keep dropping bombs, and it would be very hard to recover. The best way was to use divine power to heal this wound himself. Suddenly, Miho growled. It screamed, causing Jin Huk's ears to feel like they were about to burst. Van Can notice something strange about the crowd. They had no reaction to Miho's scream and moved as if they were unconscious. A golden light made the two of them freeze, a girl with a halo like an angel above her head. Approaching them pleased to meet the ghostly face, Jin Huk recognized she came from the Celestial clan. If that's the case, then he wouldn't hold back. He wanted to fight right away. She had somehow held on to Jin's sword hilt. Huk warned him not to do something he would regret. Jin Huk couldn't move. While she only used one hand, suddenly she placed her hand on his face, knowing every internal wound he had. Each time she moved her hand over a certain part of Jin Huk's body, the halo above her head brightened. A stream of light entered his body. Van Can, standing beside him, was anxious, wondering if he was okay. But his injured body had fully recovered. This was the divine power of the Celestial clan. She did this to prove she had no intention of fighting him. Then she introduced herself as Uriel from the Celestial clan of the Wingless. Everyone suddenly woke up feeling as if they had just awakened from a deep sleep. Jin Huk immediately asked what Uriel had done. She said she only influenced their memories a little to protect the people here. According to the information she received, if they knew about the Celestial clan from the 10th floor to here, it would be very troublesome. Jin Huk assessed her as brave, but also very calculating. Not bad. But why didn't she use it on him? Was it because she couldn't, or did it have a slow effect? Uriel couldn't use the soul, and even Miho, who was adorably fluffing up, and Vulcan were unharmed. He gritted his teeth. Being a soul meant being seen wherever one went. Today, Uriel came because he, the masked one, intended to defy the heavens. His power, along with those accompanying him, would temporarily weaken. But in the end, it would succeed. This was the prophecy from the Wingless clan of Uriel. Jin Huk asked about the name Wingless because he had never heard of it before. Uriel suddenly stood up, removing her clothes to reveal the severed wings on her back. But in the end, they succeeded. This is the prophecy from the Void clan. Uriel Jin Huk asked about the name Void because he had never heard of it before. Uriel suddenly stood up, removing her clothes to reveal her severed wings behind her back. One cannot overlook that blurred body. The Celestial Society was becoming blindly insane due to greed, and those of their kind who did not share their thoughts were expelled and became sinners. When the Celestial Society committed crimes and were expelled, they would be stripped of... The wings were their symbol, so Uriel only belonged to the Celestial clan. The Void clan consisted of Celestials like Uriel, those who were expelled from Utopia, the city of the Celestials. According to the prophecy, Jin Huk intended to overthrow the dominance of the Sahoang clan, so the Void clan also wanted to contribute to that cause. Jin Huk communicated telepathically with Vulcan. It seemed she was not lying, so he accepted it. When Jin Huk asked about the benefits, Uriel honestly shook her head. The power of the Void clan was very strong. But Utopia had identified them as enemies and was monitoring them. Their increasing numbers meant that the hostility from the Celestial Society was also rising. Jin Huk did not expect everything to be so troublesome. It would be a pity to let go of an army originating from the Celestial Clan, but it would be too risky to recruit them. However, if at some crucial moment he needed the power of the Void, they would always be ready. Jin Huk was satisfied and decided to ally with them. It seemed that his side's name had not been revealed yet. He immediately asked Ural if she could hide from the gods and demons, but she could only do it for a moment. Ural plucked a feather from her wing and created a barrier similar to Goldrich's. Those people would not hear anything no matter what they did inside. To verify, Jin Huk removed his mask and shouted, "You eavesdropping bastards, can you hear me?" Yuri was stunned, unable to believe that the figure she revered was acting so foolishly. After verifying, Duyen Hue felt relieved to remove the mask and introduced his real name and identity. 15 years ago, upon hearing the name Cha Jin Huk, Ural immediately knelt down. I apologize, my lord. I was truly ignorant." The reason she acted this way was that 15 years ago, Ural was one of those who judged his death. The atmosphere froze for a few seconds. Jin Huk slammed his foot down on the floor, his whole body filled with killing intent. "What you say next, you better choose carefully." Uriel still kept her head bowed as she was in a submissive position. She asked him if he knew what would happen when climbing to the 999th floor. Jin Huk replied confidently that he would meet the same fate as those people. Like the demons and the god overseeing the tower, but according to Uriel, the Sa Huang was drowning in their superiority and wanted to monopolize that position. Ultimately, besides themselves, they did not want anyone capable of conquering the tower. Jin Huk was quite surprised. Before he had only guessed, but now he was certain. Even the mastermind was right in front of him. Jin Huk would definitely send Uriel's head to the Celestial Clan. Even though she was being attacked, she did not resist. This is why she became useless to the Celestial Clan. Jin Huk did not understand much. In fact, Uriel had felt useless since 15 years ago when she opposed the Celestial Clan's selection of tower climbers. And that person was Cha Jin Huk, the Black Death. Jin Huk decided to spare her life. How wicked, you must apologize to me. After all, he did not want to unleash his anger on Uriel because he understood the difference between her two opposing views and those of the Celestial Clan. Uriel was very grateful that Jin Huk understood her situation. There might be those with a common purpose with them in the Sa Huang clan. If he could contact them, Uriel felt that Jin Huk should also accept them as friends. Jin Huk had experienced enough to know that there were all kinds of people everywhere. Those expelled from the Sa Huang clan would definitely be very valuable to him. If he could recruit them, it would be very beneficial in the fight against the Sa Huang. Jin Huk asked about Uriel's hiding place. It was the 190th floor of the Dream City. The 190th floor was lower than he thought, because the higher he went, the stronger the influence of the Sa Huang became. Jin Huk has experienced enough to know that there are all kinds of people everywhere. Those who have been expelled from the Star Emperor's clan would definitely be valuable to him. If he could recruit them, it would be very beneficial. In the fight against the Star Emperor, Jin Huk asked about Uriel's hideout. It is located on the 190th floor of Dream City. The 190th floor is lower than he thought because the higher you go, the stronger the influence of the Star Emperor becomes. So they cannot go above the 200 to 300 floors, which is that person's area. Jin Huk also forgot that this is where that person tests the Emperor of War's existence, unrivaled with power placed at the feet from the 200 to 300 floors. If the Immortal establishes a base there, the possibility is high. It will be destroyed by the hands of the Emperor of War's test without needing the Celestial Clan to intervene. If it's not too much trouble, please let me put on my clothes again, Yuri shyly said, and Jin Huk wondered. Will her coming to find him leave any traces? Yuri insists that she is not. But due to the pursuit of the celestial beings, the only thing she brought here is this body. Jin Huk smirks, satisfied that this is enough. His somewhat inhuman smile makes Yuri wary. She only knows him through prophecy and doesn't know whether he prefers boys or girls. Jin Huk quickly clarifies that he just wants a few feathers from Yuri. Oh, if it's feathers, Uriel has plenty because they will grow back. In fact, Jin Huk is afraid they might not grow back again, so he chose his words carefully, but Uriel generously plucked a lot for him. However, she warns him not to reveal it because the celestial beings can trace the owner of the feathers. She doesn't need to follow him since he will swallow all these feathers without leaving a trace. Damn, he really is that kind of person. Uriel fluffs up again, leaving Jin Huk unsure of what to do. Finally, it's time to say goodbye. Uriel will wait to see what he can do before disappearing into thin air. Eating it right away, huh? Vunkan curiously asks if Jin Huk wants to taste it. It's been a long time, so he can't wait. The divine power of the celestial beings, he wonders if he can withstand it. Vunkan doesn't want to say anything more. He has long given up on those distant desires for power. Not forgetting to remind Miho not to eat anything she sees like Jin Huk, who might end up with digestive issues. Jin Huk tries to taste a feather and suddenly his heart seems to stop, his whole body glowing. As if there were a light bulb inside him, Vunkan sighs. He is too familiar with this scene. Inviting Miho to play around Jin Huk's area, he can't bear it. The pain makes him scream loudly and then faint when Jin Huk wakes up. He is surrounded by water, his head pounding like a hammer, but more importantly, he is in the world. Imagining Jin Huk worries that his tiny body cannot handle this divine power of the celestial beings. If so, what will happen in this imagined world? Suddenly behind him, a waterfall of gold is crashing down. It seems that this is the divine power that has entered his body, swirling like a giant mountain. But it's just a feather. Luckily, he didn't start a war with Uriel, but if he wins and swallows her body, he can't imagine the power. How great he would become. Suddenly, Jin Huk realizes that the water is rising, not the image of the waterfall. He must overcome this feeling. Before the divine waterfall swallows the imagined world, there is only one way. Jin Huk uses his spiritual power from the outside. Vunkan, watching Jin Huk's lifeless body, is surprised to see him using spiritual power to resist, but something feels off. Because he is using spiritual power in a soul state, Miho appears sad, so Vunkan comforts her, saying to try to trust Jin Huk once. He must have his own intentions in absorbing the feathers. This is a challenge, so surely Jin Huk can overcome it. After all, how many more things will Jin Huk do to surprise him? Truly, he is the main character in this imagined world. Jin Huk is sucking in the holy water like drinking bubble tea. But it has no effect. He creates an image controlling divine power through spiritual energy because that power is obtained through hunting and absorbing them, so he keeps thinking about the waterfall. This can be drunk normally, but if it continues like this, he will definitely fail. This divine power is overwhelming Jin Huk's steadfast will. Either he gives up this power or he suddenly realizes that he is afraid. But why should he be afraid? This is an image created from the soul within his own body, so if that's the case, Jin Huk must do it his own way. He uses spiritual energy to create a giant shark. Bloodthirsty like himself, he commands it to charge towards the waterfall. From now on, this is the truth. Jin Huk enjoys every drop of holy water. It tastes even better than milk tea. It makes him unable to suppress his desire. Jin Huk wants more. It's never enough. He must absorb even more, and meanwhile, in reality, his body reacts accordingly. His body twitches with a delirious smile, making him look no different from a junkie just after injecting drugs, watching from start to finish, clapping in appreciation, welcoming the birth of the hunting demon lord. There is a neutral god constantly playing sinister tricks named the Greedy Dragon. It is so greedy that it occupies all the treasures, going so mad as to want to eat everything in the world. The divine name of the Greedy Dragon is described as greedy, just like Jin Huk at this moment, wanting to swallow all that divine power without knowing when to stop. The voice of Vunkan rang out along with Miho's delighted face. Jin Huk has returned, and Vunkan is curious whether he succeeded or failed so that he can laugh in his face. What a pity what to do. Of course he succeeded. Jin Huk demonstrates his skills to Vunkan, leaving no chance for him to mock. Although he is just a tiny seed, he has created a universe to generate divine power within himself. Vunkan could not have imagined that Jin Huk is not of the royal clan but carries the power of the celestial clan. If the celestial clan knew this, they would surely order the extermination of the three clans. Jin Huk shrugs off their extraordinary nature, hurting their pride or whatever. The important thing is that he is not afraid of them. Vunkan is happy for him, but also worried because Jin Huk is not strong enough to withstand the attacks of the royal clan with his current unstable condition. And to face the royal clan is very unpredictable. A few days later, in the hunting area of the 10th floor, Jin Huk continues to train for the ghost army. because they are not yet the strongest, although it is said to be training only. Vun Kan has to summon soldiers, while Jin Huk stands behind like a teacher supervising him. When a ghost soldier is cut down, everything begins. A beam of light emanates from the body of the ghost soldier, and then a ghost with divine power appears. Jin Huk calls this the Holy Ghost Soldier. Its power is just as they expected. It specializes in healing the ghost soldiers due to the weak nature of summoning spirit soldiers, so the necromancer originally pressured the opponent with numbers. Now they are upgraded like this. Indeed, beyond expectations. Although divine power is indeed divine power, it can be seen that some individuals are about to reach the 9th fruit. The strong are fighting, and Miho enjoys it all, filling her belly with fresh hot liver. Just freshly made with a speed of 892 fresh livers by tomorrow, the mission of nurturing power for Miho will almost be complete, unexpectedly achieving the title of War God. For the second time, Jin Huk opens the status window to check. He has just planted the divine power seed for a few days, and it has already increased to 3. Although it doesn't help much in emergencies, he can use it once. Now is the time to meet Hendrick, the dragon-slaying warrior, to chat a bit. According to Vulcan's information, after a certain point, Hendrick has been staying in one place, not climbing the tower, as if waiting for someone. If he stops at the 10th floor, there must be a reason, so Jin Huk really wants to meet him, just like Uriel, who can hear the sounds of gods and demons, so he might also be waiting for something. The two walked through an alley. As soon as they stepped out, they saw the tall figure of Hendrick among the crowd. Looking at the pair of horns and those red eyes, there is no doubt he is from the Dragon Clan. Then let's go. Jin Huk made a quick decision, causing Vun Kan to panic. He thought that Jin Huk shouldn't just jump out to talk to him because it wasn't certain that the person he was waiting for was Jin Huk. Jin Huk rarely used his mouth to talk. He preferred using his fists. Vun Kan frustrated cursed and was determined to stay here. Indeed, you are a coward. It must be because you were beaten badly last time, right? Jin Huk finally had the chance to taunt him while Vun Kan denied it repeatedly. The loud argument made it impossible for Hendrick to concentrate. He is waiting here. Someone said that on the 10th floor, someone would come and fulfill his wishes, but he didn't know who that person was. Jin Huk approached to greet him, who was also waiting to talk to Jin Huk. Not forgetting to send greetings to the familiar face, Vun Kan first checked if Jin was okay, although he didn't like this blatant action. But since he had already acknowledged it, he would let it go. Hendrick didn't like to act in crowded places, so he invited Jin Huk to another location. Little did he know that he preferred to do that in a dead-end alley. Henry said nothing, just opened a spatial gate. The two followed him and entered the hidden space of the 10th floor, where the eyes of angels and demons lost their power. No wonder Jin Huk's vision weakened. At this moment, Henry spoke seriously. He wanted to eliminate all the Long Clan members who wanted to kill him in this tower. So Jin Huk, are you determined to join him for this goal or not? Du Yen Hue smirked. Your dreams are too small, kid. Now what the hell are you talking about? Hendrick glared at him, and Vun Kan had to stop his mouth because that Hendrick was indeed a monster beyond the tower's standards. Provoking him means an early trip to meet your ancestors. Stay right there, you failure. Jin Huk used telepathy to remind Vun Kan that he had everything planned. Jin Huk continued talking to Hendrick. He didn't know the exact reason, but he could guess why he ended up like this. However, he was sure that Hendrick didn't know one thing. The ones targeting them were not just the Sa Huang clan. He didn't know why he was so obsessed with the Long clan, but he felt that those dragons were not enough if it were Jin Hue. He would clean up those who deceived him. Even if they were not from the Sa Huang clan, they would all share the same fate. Therefore, Hendrick's goal was too small to accompany him. Do you want to wipe out the entire Sa Huang clan? Hendrick wondered. I like you survived from the dead, and there is someone behind my death. Do you need me to elaborate further? Just saying that made Hendrick laugh, shaking his head in disbelief. Vun Kan felt he had to apologize to him. The man named Chi that Uriel mentioned was indeed you. Jin Huk didn't expect he had met her, but right now Hendrick wanted to verify whether his determination was real or just bragging. What is your name? I am Haktu Lin Father Jin Huk. He removed his mask, without hesitation revealing his true identity. At that moment, a voice shouted, "This damn lizard is causing chaos here again." Henry also had to be cautious in front of the old man's attitude. He was the first blacksmith living here, and he was also the one who forged his sword. When meeting him, both Jin Huk and Vun Kan were astonished. That was a real Omni. The old man curiously asked about the strange combination of soul and spirit animal. Who is that dark-skinned person? Jin Huk twitched his mouth, wondering how he was still alive after hearing his question. He was 100% sure that Jin Huk was the one who attacked the Oni village, and he explained that it wasn't him, but the more he explained, the more misunderstandings arose, causing the old man to go crazy and grab a hammer wanting to smash his skull. You are the mastermind who burned down the village. Henry stepped in to stop him, urging him to calm down because Jin Huk was in the same situation as him. Then he asked if he knew Harry. Indeed, the answer was yes, and the group went to his house. Henry did not expect such a coincidence in the vast tower. According to his story, on the day of the village's traditional festival, all the Oni gathered on the 100th floor because they were old. So he did not participate in the festivities, but stayed here to guard, and then disaster struck. He eagerly asked for Harry's whereabouts, and Jin Huk said she was on the 9th floor, and they would soon reunite with them. This mask belonged to Haru, and she gave it to him as a gift to repay his life-saving favor. Hendrick was curious if Haru was strong. Jin Huk proudly spoke of her, saying that even though she was recovering, if they fought solo, she would be on par with them. Moreover, Haru was a long-term partner after receiving the mask. They decided to take revenge together. The old man suddenly held Jin Huk's hand to show his gratitude while introducing his real name, Gino, who would support them with all his abilities, and to rebuild the village with Haru. Jin Huk didn't understand much, but nodded in agreement. Only Vulcan knew that the mask meant a proposal. Gino allowed him to take all the items from the forge that he deemed necessary. They were all good weapons at a different level compared to what Goldrich had given him after everything was settled. Jin Huk decided to leave. But Gino had been snoring for a while, perhaps because he had relaxed somewhat. Hendrick had never seen him rest comfortably after working hours in the village. Jin Huk decided to let Gino continue sleeping. If Haru came, he would let her meet him first. She would surely gain more strength if she met Gino. Just then, the sound of Vulcan's shouting echoed in his ears. Jin Huk dodged Hendrick's surprise attack, which blew up an entire house. He was satisfied with Jin Huk's reaction speed. His earlier words confirmed his strength, and if Jin Huk could defeat him, something miraculous could happen. Hu also had no intention of talking verbally. He would also test the strength of the Dragon Slayer as both sides charged into a duel, destroying everything around them. But they felt exhilarated because they had never unleashed their full strength like this. Hendrick could easily cut through Jin Huk's spirit soldiers, but he had set a dagger behind him. He was slightly surprised, but still easily countered. In Hendrick's eyes, this was a shallow technique unworthy of his level. Jin Huk charged directly to duel with him. Hendrick moved his body lightly like a feather, feeling as if he were just a spirit that couldn't be touched. Jin Huk cursed his swordsmanship and all-around master skills. He could dodge this. He even grabbed Jin Huk's hand and threw him away like a bag of sand. If you want to follow me and work together, you need to try harder. Hendrick saw the problem arise after testing a few moves with him. Jin Huk had to regenerate his spirit soldiers and summon monsters from the 10th floor for his power to be effective. Oh, really? Jin Huk spoke up while Vulcan was locking him down. Now was the time for him to regain his face after running away with his tail between his legs last time. Jin Huk summoned a large spear. The artifact cut the throat of the Great Brain Warrior in just 1 second. Now let's fight. Vulcan jumped out of Hendrick's body to avoid getting caught up. Hendrick pretended to grind his teeth to fit the scene, but his sword had a spell to dispel magic. So Vulcan's chains were useless. He signaled Jin Huk to get away because his sword was the Dragon Slayer, which sliced the spear in half and flew straight toward Jin Huk. There was a huge explosion where he stood. Vulcan wanted to worry but had to take care of himself first. Hendrick was trampling him underfoot. He must be Jin Huk's strongest teammate. If that's the case, who else can help Jin Huk? Hendrick was eager to find his body. Jin Huk jumped out from the side, saying, "Who said Vulcan was the strongest teammate? I'm still alive and well here." Jin Huk shot an arrow, but it passed through Hendrick's smooth, shiny hair, leaving him speechless. Compared to swordsmanship, his archery skills were even more hopeless than 2 arrows shot into the sky. Releasing magic caught Hendrick's attention, then Jin Huk shot 3 more arrows that hit him, causing him to fall freely. The attack was effective, and Jin Huk had to seize this moment to finish it. He put on the Oni mask to activate the battle vision. Henry, falling freely, gritted his teeth in frustration and created a fiery red tornado, leaving Jin Huk helpless. He missed his chance. Ha 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 ha, you're really strong, Father Jin Huk. I was a bit surprised, but this is not the end. Henry shouted excitedly. He still hadn't unleashed his full power for the next move, which is characteristic of the Dragon Clan's Shung Long Tien. Jin Huk was sweating not from heat but from worry. He couldn't see the path to dodge, even though he knew the trajectory of that technique. But through his battle prediction ability, his speed was insufficient. If hit, it would mean the end. However, he still had another persona, so Jin Huk put on the fox mask. Gino woke up after 5 minutes of dozing off, but all around him was a pile of rubble. He was sure that lizard Hendrick had gone crazy. Miho perked up her ears and ran outside, causing him to chase after her in worry. He stood before Jin Hyuk's call. Hendrick unleashed Shung Long Tien and suddenly vanished, leaving Jin Huk bewildered. Less than a second later, he appeared right in front of Jin Huk with his sword thrusting straight at him. Another explosion amidst the rubble, but not a drop of blood was found. Hendrick couldn't believe Jin Huk could dodge this technique. But the truth was that Jin Huk appeared behind him with the fox mask, making him even more excited. That mask was beautiful, wasn't it? From Jin Huk's hands, he created claws like a werewolf. Wolverine charged in to clash with Hendrick's long slash, but his agility and strength had changed. Hendrick also realized that Jin Huk was not simple due to the power of that fox mask. Talking while fighting caused him to be pushed back by Jin Huk. A rare opening appeared, so he couldn't afford to delay. Little did he know that on the other side, Hendrick had prepared a magical attack. Perhaps he intentionally created an opening to bait him and then unleashed a magic attack. Indeed, that was the case. The magical attack created even more rubble, unexpectedly revealing someone more despicable than Jin Huk. He charged out from the dust. At this moment, he had to use his ultimate move. The mesmerizing technique of the Fox clan. Hendrick could guess it, but still couldn't avoid the overwhelming feeling of happiness, as if he had met the destiny of his life, gritting his teeth. He shouted, "I have no interest in men!" Thanks to his mental focus, he managed to break free from the mesmerizing technique, but that was not Jin Hyuk's goal. In that brief moment, his body became immobile and Jin Huk could easily approach him at this distance. Jin Huk couldn't carelessly use weapons, so he would try to finish it in one blow. He remembered Kyung-hoon's technique, a masterful skill. Combining the agile movements of the fox and the spell to enhance strength, he poured everything into one forearm to create the perfect punch. It's over. Kid Jin Huk delivered a precise punch to Hendrick's 8-pack abs. This move was called Thoi Kin Han Lu Nat Truong, which sounds long but is simply a direct punch. This time the area of destruction was even wider than Hendrick. The dust and noise could awaken the heavens. He struggled to get up and asked, "What's the score now?" From the dust, Jin Hyuk's figure emerged, making him overjoyed. But before he could celebrate for 3 seconds, he collapsed, blood pouring from his eyes and mouth. He had used all his strength and could no longer move his body. Meanwhile, Hendrick still had his sword to use as a club. Everything should have ended by then. He swung his sword with confidence that he had won. But you won't just jump up to demand justice lost and lost. We have used the final attack, and you have already been defeated. The monster Hendrick was in a tough spot because he never thought he would lose like this, which made him very frustrated. Hendrick said, but he wanted to decide based on the final blow. This final move. He was very pleased with your strength, but he wanted to win at all costs. Wait, I can't move my body. Jin Huk signaled for help, but Hendrick pretended not to hear. He summoned a fire dragon charging towards you. Jin Huk helplessly didn't know whether it was blood or tears falling down. All right, you will win, you crazy guy. What did you say? I will also verify that you, the Dragon Slayer, let yourself lose. The sarcastic tone of Vun Khan drove Jin Huk crazy. You have died and become a soul, yet your nature hasn't changed. Jin Huk pulled his hand back in pain, which only encouraged Vun Khan to push harder. Don't overdo it like that. If you didn't have the divine power of Uriel, you would have failed even more miserably. Without divine power, your tiny body would have been crushed to pieces, old man. Hey, why do you keep provoking and bad-mouthing the master like that? Just wait until I recover and see. The two of you arguing back and forth prevented Miho from falling asleep. At this moment, Hendrick, the cause of the argument, stepped in. How's your body now? Seeing him, it was as if Vun Khan saw a ghost. Suddenly, he remembered his own words about taking down Hendrick last time, so he approached and apologized. Hendrick didn't investigate because now it was his fault. Letting go of the past made Vun Khan breathe a sigh of relief as if he had repaid a debt. When fighting Jin Huk, he was like a madman, but when calm, he was completely different. Hendrick looked at Jin Huk kindly and asked if he had gone a bit too far. His question struck right at the pain, making you annoyed. You two stop it. Next time I will definitely win. Putting this aside, he wanted to hear his story, so he called Hendrick over. About his previous life and his death, Hendrick recounted the events starting from when his hometown family disappeared without a trace because the Dragon clan was left alone. He survived like a miracle, witnessing his loved ones die in flames while dragons soared in the sky. A bit of pity left him with nothing but rage over horns and dragon scales. After that, Hendrick climbed the tower like any other fake tower climber. Luckily, he had talent, and the first time he took action against a dragon for revenge was on the 600th floor. Jin Huk was surprised. He climbed the tower faster than him. From that moment on, Hendrick stepped into the path of dragon addiction, but at the same time he was pursued by the Sa Huang clan. That was his daily life. One thing Hendrick noticed. The stronger he became, the lighter their punishments grew. After 800 floors, their lair seemed to be gone. Punishments were a system imposed to regulate tower climbers. They couldn't monopolize the tower. All of them were increasingly limited in their abilities. When at a lower floor compared to their highest, that's why you could withstand Goldrich's attack. Without punishment, you would have been dead by now. Suddenly, Jin Huk jolted. How many floors has Hendrick climbed? Floor 900, he said. This is where his journey ends. If it's floor 900, perhaps he was destined to become a super elite. A large and stronger pursuit team from the Sa Huang clan was formed to catch him. In the end, Hendrick couldn't withstand 10 people from the Sa Huang clan and had to lose his life. Ironically, with countless races, he was reborn in the body of the Dragon clan. He wanted to die, but dying with this power and body was not easy at all. So Hendrick accepted it and used this body as a tool for revenge. Du Yanhu had a bit of sympathy for him and knew Hendrick's answer. Hendrick nodded excitedly and asked about the next tower climbing moment. According to him, they were waiting for Haru. Who would have thought he wanted to climb the tower with you? Although annoyed, Du Yanhu couldn't do anything. Moreover, Hendrick noticed they had many common points. He had fought alone in the final moments, and perhaps you were the same. They must learn from their past failures. Fighting them all alone is just a vain ambition. Jin Huk also knew that he needed teammates and friends to fight side by side, so Hendrick proposed forming a guild, which was unexpected for Jin Huk. Meanwhile, on the 600th floor of the Holy Union, the Holy Mother Palo stormed into the interrogation room with an irritated attitude. He was reviewing a report sent from the White Swallow branch on the 10th floor. Someone had set fire and turned that place into ashes, and that person had gone alone according to the information sent by Beck Holio, but he also thought it was not an act of collective effort. Those on the lower floors, like the 10th, regardless of their strength, faced penalties that reduced their power, and she shouted that even if they were 9 stars, they could not escape the law of power reduction. Therefore, the culprit must be someone with overwhelming strength on the 10th floor, quite similar to them when they first climbed the tower, yet he was sure everything was still under their control. In case that person had powers they were unaware of, they would follow the plan to eliminate the roots first. He would hire a bounty hunter, someone capable of handling this matter. After thinking for a while, Jin Huk agreed with Hendrick. However, there was one issue. He was currently on a mission from the guild, and before reaching the 100th floor, he had to raise his reputation and name. Therefore, it would be problematic if he got involved with him or his guild. Hendrick nodded, understanding the issue. He had a simple yet effective solution. Jin Huk would become the guild leader. Oh wow, Jin Huk had never thought of this scenario. Originally, Hendrick did not want to sit in that position. In fact, he did not feel confident. While Jin Huk was an excellent necromancer, a talent for the command position. Jin Huk also did not feel confident because he was weaker than Hendrick. At that time, he would have to give orders to him. Would he accept being commanded by someone weaker than himself? Suddenly, Hendrick knelt before him, leaving Jin Huk stunned. He did not want to do that with him, just joking. This was his answer. He did not know how much humiliation he had to endure. He had felt so powerless and angry. For the main purpose, no matter what would you accept? Jin Huk asked again, and Hendrick nodded. If so, to take revenge for both him and himself, Jin Huk would take on the position of guild leader, which made Hendrick extremely pleased. That was indeed a wise decision. Now what would the guild's name be? Leading is the masked one who eradicates all crimes and plots against the heavens. No name fits better than this. Jin Huk was very fond of this name. The guild could be established immediately after paying the registration fee to the trading association during such times. Jin Huk recalled Goldrich and his puppet, but he suddenly remembered that the puppet had already left. Right now, Hansen was managing the 10th floor branch, and there was one thing he found confusing. Ken from the tower was here eavesdropping because of the tower's affairs, so he often came here. Not only that, but he was also a good friend of Hansen, sharing hardships. Every time Jin Huk came, he brought terrible requests, so Hansen was very curious about what this time was about. Jin Huk said he wanted to form a guild. Han Seon thought this seemed easy. Surely everyone wanted to join the guild that the masked one established. However, to establish a guild, there needed to be more than 2 members, and this was his team, Hendrick, Vunken, and Miho. Ken panicked upon seeing the Long clan, while Han Seon admired him greatly for having recruited Hendrick. It seemed he was quite famous here, since he stood in the middle of the road every day talking nonsense, and Jin Huk had already sent invitations to others as soon as they gathered. Haitian had to handle it so that the guild could be established immediately. Haitian obeyed Goldrich's orders, who told him to follow any of his requests. At that moment, the letters had reached the puppet Harry and Goldrich. Everything was gradually becoming more interesting. That night, Jin Huk went to find food for Miho. At the same time, he experimented with magic to separate a pile of corpses that had been stacked into a mountain to prepare a buffet for Miho. Today was the time to complete 999 living livers. After Miho ate the last piece of liver, a bright red column erupted. Hendrick gritted his teeth, wondering what would happen if that fox ate all that raw liver. The system announced that 9-tailed foxes were manifesting. Vun Khan panicked and shouted, "Hey, you guys, look over there!" A figure appeared, and Jin Huk was astonished by the true form of the 9-tailed fox. A very cute child of indeterminate gender, albeit a bit clumsy, had somehow fallen into his hands. Miho pouted and spoke in a cute voice. "Daddy, what's going on with this green bean and water spinach situation?" "You don't even have a wife, so what do you mean by dad? Oh, who is that girl?" Haru appeared with a blank expression, and Jin Huk found himself in a precarious situation, wondering what to do now. Miho innocently pointed at Haru. "Daddy, who is that big sister?" The sweet call of daddy from the little girl made Haru exude a strong aura of hostility, even though she didn't understand why. But Jin Huk felt a chill and turned to the 9-tailed fox, realizing that the mission was complete. Meanwhile, Miho had become his pet, and Jin Huk was unaware that being favored by the fox felt like this. The 9-tailed fox entrusted its daughter to him and then left. Vonka looked at him with a sinister smile, while Hendrick was puzzled as to how a human could give birth to a fox. Haru had grown up so much already. So when did he do that? But with Jin Huk being both handsome and strong, having a girlfriend was not surprising. She should have just accepted things from the beginning and moved on, deluding herself into thinking she meant something to him only to face a bitter end. Hendrick approached to greet Haru. He recognized her as the young Oni girl they had been waiting for. Haru looked up at his Dragon Clan form. That memory flooded back amidst the flames, consuming the village, a silhouette of the cruel Dragon Clan member she could never forget. Haru didn't hesitate to swing her sword at Hendrick. In her eyes, he was the enemy of the Oni village. Hendrick, though confused as to why he was being attacked everywhere he went, reacted quickly, calling for Jin Huk to clear his name. Jin Huk smirked. It seems Haru has misunderstood something, but he should resolve it himself. Henry didn't want to intervene for fear she would get hurt, but he was confident that with Haru's lion-hearted nature, nothing would be painful for her. If that's the case, Henry would consider this a second test. Haru was thrown back but felt no pain. Instead, she charged forward to attack. Henry could see her spiritual power was very strong, but not strong enough to compare to him. A slash from Hendrick was like a dragon's tail striking hard, sending Haru flying. She lay on the ground, gritting her teeth, not expecting the gap in power to be so vast. The enemy was right in front of her, yet she had no strength to avenge her village. The spirit within the sword reappeared, recognizing the Dragon Clan and lending Haru its strength. He would grant her the power to slay dragons. That's why he was called the Dragon Slayer. Haru transformed, making Hendrick very pleased with the sword's design. He easily blocked the Dragon Slayer sword with just one hand. This surprised Haru, and then he didn't hesitate to kick her in the ribs. She had the Dragon Slayer sword, but he had something stronger. Just considering the quality of the weapon made it stronger than her. Haru silently prayed for the Dragon Slayer sword to grant her the strength to take revenge. He was very pleased with her spirit, and her power increased. Hendrick could recognize that shape as the sword's spirit. "You are the one who burned my village. I will avenge the fallen Oni." Haru swung the sword with a power entirely different from before. Hendrick knew that it was not her strength but that of the sword. If this continued, she would be in danger. Hendrick grabbed Haru's hand, demanding she put the sword down. That power was a parasite that would corrode her. She had not reached the level to control it. Haru refused, saying she would only drop the sword when he was dead. Facing the one who slaughtered her clan, Haru would never forgive. Hendrick realized that Haru harbored such deep hatred for the dragon clan that she could not control it. As someone who had wielded that sword longer than she had, Hendrick felt responsible for guiding her. He warned her that this blow would hurt a lot, but she wouldn't be going to meet her ancestors. Sung Long theme descended, shattering an entire area. Haru released the sword and gradually sank into a dream. Haru is in the forest of Oni village when a ball rolls towards her and the children appear looking at her with lifeless eyes. Why is it only her who is still alive? Facing this question makes Haru realize that the girl, like many others from Oni, also wanted to live like her. Why is she the only one who survived? As for the others, they had to lose their lives. Haru always wonders about that too. What is the reason for her survival? She must continue to live to wield the longsword. He appears as a saving force. The only way to take revenge for the village is to rely on her. And now she must stand up and fight. The Oni tribe never forgets the two words gratitude and revenge. Hendrick is startled to see Harry standing up after being hit by Long Theme. The injury not only made her more furious, but also charged towards him. The sword seemed capable of piercing through Hendrick's body if it hadn't shattered into pieces, and Harry was reaching her limit. The longsword realizes she must become stronger until she can eliminate him and take revenge for the entire Oni tribe. Dien Hu and Vun can stand aside watching the action unfold, pretending to run out to check the situation. Luckily, Hendrick is fine. Because Harry was exhausted before she could strike him now, just let her rest. It seems Harry has continuously pushed herself beyond her limits. That sword has had a significant impact on her. Henry fears that when he wakes up, Harry will continue to attack him because their stories are quite similar. Perhaps the original owner of his body was one of the dragons. Attacking the Oni village, Henry vows to bear the brunt of that rage. After all, he must take responsibility for this crime. Jin Huk leads Hendrick to another room he has rented on the second floor, so he will stay here until she wakes up. Hendrick thanks him, but insists he must bear the anger. Jin Huk, frustrated, shouts, "Do you think I care about you? You get out of my sight, and only then can Harry recover." After that, indeed, Haru has rested more comfortably. When she opens her eyes, she thinks Jin Huk will be by her side, but instead it's his daughter. Haru is startled, making a noise. Jin Huk, who is outside, comes in to check on her. "Here I am, Dad." Miho innocently calls him, causing Haru to sink back into nightmares. Jin Hyuk pulls Miho away and warns her not to call like that anymore if she doesn't want Haru to go crazy and cause trouble for him. The next day, everyone sets off. Haru has arranged all her belongings. Even though the longsword is broken, she still has a feeling it will return. Hendrick's belongings have been magically organized, so nothing is forgotten. Miho also doesn't forget anything, not even calling Jin Hyuk brother. Jin Hyuk is quite surprised that she no longer calls him Dad, all thanks to Haru's easy-to-understand and patient explanations. Miho prefers to call him Dad, she mumbles, but as soon as she meets Harry's bloodthirsty gaze, she retracts her words. Jin Hyuk gives each person a teleportation scroll. If they tear it, they will arrive at the meeting room that Goldrich has prepared. Vunkin shouts, "Where's my part?" Then he forgets. Jin Hyuk snaps his fingers to recall the old man back to the soul cup, making him frustrated. "You bastard, I told you not to treat me like an object. Want to take me, take me. Want to store me, store me. Now let's go." The group heads to a room built with magic. Only the wealthy like Goldrich can manage this place. At the same time, another person appears, the old man Gino. The two embrace each other in tears. Vunkin, witnessing this scene, also feels moved. It is indeed a relief for the two of them to meet. Goldrich steps in like a god of time, also made of gold and silver, so he is very annoyed that they arrived late. Jin Hyuk explains the situation of Oni, but Goldrich sees him becoming weaker compared to when he was the puppet of the Death Star, recognizing that name. "The strong tower climber has been dead for 15 years for betraying humanity. I am that betrayer, dead for 15 years. Jin Hyuk removes the mask during the meeting with Goldrich. He reiterates the information they have known up to now. Roy raises his hand in confusion. He struggles to accept the information that the four royal families are secretly eliminating anyone with potential. Including the Oni village on the 100th floor, both Jin Hyuk and Hendrick are resurrected victims, but more importantly, the guild's goal is revenge. A guild consisting of those who plot against heaven. As their name suggests, they will devastate the heavenly realm. Gino knows Jin Hyuk is a madman, but this is more than he expected from the puppet. They will certainly bring significant change to this tower. It is highly anticipated. After the meeting, Goldrich asked about Jin Huk's next plans. Of course, he will have to climb the tower. Every member must do so. The more power they have, the better. Their only way is to use poison to counter poison. Haru rushed to ask Gino about climbing the tower together, which made him very happy. But he wants to act alone. After seeing her safe, he has somewhat calmed his anger about the past. His motivation is also diminished. If they go together, Gino will still feel comfortable. At that time, the power will stagnate, and besides, he is already old. He cannot be a burden to her. From now on, Gino will change his name to Shadowless. He is no longer the Oni named Gino, but just an ordinary blacksmith. He does not forget to remind her to never forget the responsibility and hatred of the Oni. Finally, Jin Huk decided to assign him another task. Goldrich wants to establish a base on the 100th floor, and he also needs to investigate that village. And the manager will be Gino, the best Oni blacksmith who has lived on the 100th floor long enough to understand its terrain and characteristics. Goldrich realizes the issue. He ordered the puppet to escort him to the 100th floor. After deciding the destination for everyone, they should set off now. Those who plot against heaven will show them where their name came from. In the safe area of the 11th floor, Jin Huk stepped in like a god. The 11th floor is the true beginning. Those bastards have turned him into this. Just wait. He does not care how high they are on the upper floors because he will come and destroy their den. At this moment from the gate, a familiar bounty hunter stepped out with a silly smile. She was sent to find Jin Huk, jumping to the 50th floor. Everyone was discussing the phantom face that had climbed to the 50th floor with the army. The soul soldiers can recover, not only that his comrades are very strong, wherever he fights, the number of soul soldiers increases. A person who has just taken office as the head of the sub-guild was also attacked. He was unwilling to go down the hole right after enjoying glory, summoning the stone golem to protect the Holy Kingdom. A monster from the 120th floor. He is confident he can turn the situation around and deal with all the arrogant ones who touch the Holy Kingdom alliance. Suddenly the golem behind him was smashed by the strongest comrade of Jin. Huk, a dragon slayer in the form of a dragon clan, grabbed his neck, the one at the top of the 50th floor. He could not believe Jin Huk wanted to become an enemy of the 9 stars, but they had been his enemies for 15 years already. To be fair, every time he set a record of climbing the tower, that guild was smashed to pieces. The 50th floor has ended. The Anti-Heaven Guild will gradually overturn all their plans. Jin Huk walked through the streets amidst the chatter of those around him because he had attacked the small guilds of the 9 Stars Alliance. It seems this news quickly spread to the higher floors. They could use magic to erase all traces, but Haru felt like he was intentionally exposing himself. Jin Huk was tired of infiltrating their alliance for information. From now on, he would make them fear and seek him out first. With the stats he had, even if ambushed, it would be fine. Although his demonic energy and divine power are still quite weak, if he climbs the tower and attacks from higher floors, these two will become weaknesses. Luckily, they are limited in power when going down to lower floors. The unfortunate thing is that their equipment is still not stable. Henry advised him not to be too greedy. He is using a weapon made by the top Oni blacksmith Shadowless. Without it, climbing the tower would be much harder. Mentioning Shadowless made Harry curious about how his life is now. Miho criticized Henry for making her sad. Did we say anything wrong? Henry sitting idle was also criticized, making him very frustrated. In short, Jin Huk still wants to arrange to search for equipment. Going there to relieve his mood is best. The place he is referring to is the black market of the 51st floor, where they can find equipment that is usually not available. Going there to clear his mind is best. The place he is referring to is the black market on the 51st floor, where they can find equipment that is usually unavailable. If there's something you like being auctioned, then I will gift it to Haru and Miho. The 2 girls showed excitement, surprising him. He should have given them good items much earlier. Suddenly, a firecracker rolled out, causing everyone to separate in the dust. A gun barrel was pointed at Jin Huk's head, leaving him astonished as the arrogant bounty hunter fired. A bullet could shatter an entire house. If it weren't for the power of the mask, he would have lost his head by now. Do you think you can avoid this? The woman smirked, but look who is about to have their head chopped off by Hendrick. She commanded something to shield her, and a barrier was erected. Hendrick was surprised. It seemed she was a robot, and the shield turned into a counterattack. This sent Hendrick flying back. Haru appeared just in time with Miho. Daring to touch their Oppa activated 2 fierce lions. She activated flight mode. Haru was surprised while Miho was extremely delighted, but her smile faded when she dropped a pile of firecrackers. The two girls fell into a deep sleep, entranced by her and her rebel companions. "I came here with high hopes, yet this is all you can do," she mocked, but of course that wasn't the case. Hendrick and Jin Huk attacked simultaneously, thinking they had succeeded, but both found guns pointed at their heads. Quite a predicament. I almost felt regret for having to end you two so soon. Both jumped out, but it seemed she didn't want to talk. That night, the group sat down to discuss. She introduced herself as a snail. The talented bounty hunter, surprisingly, on the 50th floor, there was someone daring enough to place a bounty on them. They wouldn't need introduction since she always had detailed information about her prey. However, she had a better idea. The snail wanted to bet on a wager that would benefit both sides. Hendrick wasn't too fond of betting, but the snail said that if they won, she would withdraw and reveal who placed the bounty. Hendrick didn't want to hear any more and wanted to take her life right then and there, but Jin Huk ordered him to stop. If the one behind this is the 9 stars or the Emperor, then they would have been in danger since they climbed the tower. This is the information they needed. The snail wanted a fun fight with a strong opponent. In the end, it was still about fighting, Hendrick shouted in frustration, but she had conditions. Regardless of who wins or loses, all 3 must survive. She must live for them to get the information. Just to remind you, she had no special intentions towards them. Both didn't know her purpose when she said not to kill. Since it was 2 against 1, Jin Huk couldn't summon his spirit. Jin Huk agreed as long as he knew what she wanted, attacking wouldn't be too late. Chopping off hands and feet was fine. As long as they were still alive, right, Hendrick was ready for battle. Watching the transformation into an automatic aircraft, it opened fire targeting Jin Huk, but what could those toys do to him? The snail appeared behind Jin Huk. He used the spirit shield while Hendrick appeared behind the snail. She calmly activated teleportation, vanishing instantly. Although he didn't want to, Hendrick couldn't stop his attack and struck Jin Huk. The snail saw they were not coordinating well at all. Jin Huk grabbed Hendrick's collar and the two argued back and forth. He ordered him to cooperate with him, but Hendrick thought he should entrust this battle to him if they wanted to win. "Hey, you two fools. I know you both have strong opinions, but leaving me out is a bit much." Back to the deadly beam. A massive cannon fired down bright enough to illuminate the future of the two. The explosion left a vast area in ruins. Outside the forest's edge, the 2 young men fell from the sky. Luckily, Jin Huk activated teleportation just in time. If she had hit, they would have been done for. "Why are you running away while fighting that guy?" Hendrick shouted in frustration. Jin Huk immediately covered his mouth. Her helmet was transforming into an automatic aircraft, searching for them. "An incredibly advanced weapon. Who exactly is she? She certainly doesn't come from Earth. This tower is connected to countless dimensions and different worlds. Perhaps she comes from a place with technology far beyond what he knows." This time, Jin Huk seriously said that Hendrick should follow his orders if he wanted to win. The snail searches around when Jin Huk suddenly appears, causing her to be confused and reveal herself, meaning he has given up, right? "I'm sorry, but fate has determined that you must live on and become a legend." Jin Huk uses the travel spirit to hold her back. The snail thought he was using something really cool. Who would have thought he would use such a clumsy method? A figure appears behind the snail. Hendrick strikes with a surprise attack but misses. She fires through his head, but nothing happens. Hendrick's hair remains intact. Around his head is a protective shield made from the travel spirit. Hendrick strikes again, and this time he hits the snail, but she is still very much alive. Spells are not the only thing a spirit master can use. With the characteristics of a master of all trades, he can transfer all beneficial attributes to Hendrick. Now he will show her what true support from a master of all trades looks like. The speed enhancement gives Hendrick the ability to catch up with the snail. She unleashes a barrage, but Hendrick's speed makes him seem like a fly that can't be caught. He loves chasing down those who flee like her. Even with a shield, she cannot withstand the lightning strikes of Hendrick, who has been empowered by Jin Huk. A thunderous explosion occurs, and Hendrick lands like a god, but the snail does not flee. She lures him here to present a gift called a nuclear mine. Jin Huk charges, but it was too late. Another massive explosion shakes the forest. He is helpless, not knowing which world she comes from. How can there be such advanced technology? Suddenly, a bullet pierces through Jin Huk's chest. The snail stands behind him, confident that Hendrick can no longer stand, and he is the only one unscathed. Do you think so? It seems she has forgotten that Hendrick is a giant dragon and he can easily withstand the explosion from earlier. The snail looks surprised, meaning he hadn't fought with all his strength just now. Hendrick returned stronger than ever. He never wanted to resort to this disgusting form. The Dragon Clan is his eternal enemy. Hendrick, with the power of the sacred dragon, unleashes a torrent of fiery attacks at the snail, but she appears completely unharmed. Moreover, she taunts him back, saying the strongest in the tower is indeed on another level, but I haven't used all my strength yet. Just after finishing her words, the snail snaps her fingers. A barrage of firepower erupts towards Hendrick. The speed and strength of the attack are so fast that the naked eye cannot keep up. After that relentless barrage, what the snail did not expect was Hendrick. Yet he still isn't scratched or has a single hair out of place. His face still carries a proud expression, making the snail unable to bear it. Using these things just to deal with a dragon, you said we agreed not to kill each other. Right then, don't make me break this agreement. Hendrick's face contorts in anger, his whole body radiating fiery energy as he charges towards the snail. Although she is slightly intimidated, she still talks back and fights back. As he unleashes a maximum power shield, the snail's shield and Hendrick's fiery energy collide, creating a terrifying explosion. The earth shakes, and Jin Huk on this side, despite using divine power, still recovers very slowly, all due to the bullet that Xian ambushed him with earlier. Moreover, after Hendrick transformed into dragon form, Jin Huk's buff and defensive skills vanished, as if Hendrick's existence was disrupting the magical flow in this area. Hendrick and the snail, after that fierce battle, still have not determined a victor. The snail seems not tired at all and continues to apply technology using a three-dimensional illusion to attack Hendrick. I should be the only one who can control magic in this area. But how can it be? Henry Furious screams, his whole body recoiling as he tries to dodge the rain of physical bullets caused by the snail, which is pouring down around him. As the water breaks the dam, Henry stands up straight in frustration. The overwhelming magical force threatened the snail. Even if it shot that thing at him 100,000 times, it would still be useless. Okay, Henry likes what the snail offers, but I don't want to use physical bullets anymore, so I immediately switched to firing a whole AK rifle as big as a cannon with a long barrel. Oh my, it made Hendrick feel cold all over. So this is your answer? Hendrick grumbled. Yes, this is the strongest destructive force. I tried not to touch it, but now I have to use it. The snail curled its lips in response, since it had gone all out. Hendrick also didn't hesitate to unleash all his strength to counter the overwhelming firepower of Hendrick facing off against countless bullets from the snail, creating a violent earthquake like a volcano erupting, sweeping away everything without leaving a single fragment. Even the bomb dropped by the Americans on Hiroshima in '45 didn't shake as violently as this. Erasing everything around in one shot, returning to the starting point amidst the black dust and debris, the snail slowly raised its head. Looking very tired from the excessive explosive force just now, the energy was too hot, affecting the snail's shield, making it unable to maintain normal functions. The snail was about to let the shield rest for a while, glancing forward, when it was startled to find Hendrick still standing there. What the hell is that? Could it be that he can still fight after taking that hit? The snail's face turned pale, wondering, but fortunately for the snail, this was just the charred corpse of Hendrick at this moment, as the floating pillar had collapsed in front of her, grinning widely. Praising itself for truly defeating a dragon, suddenly a voice from behind rang out, making the snail's heart skip a beat. How could I be so careless? 2 against 1, have you forgotten that I'm still here? Jin Huk, with a mouthful of blood, staggered over his tone, mocking someone who was injured with a hole in them. You're really talking a lot. Do you think that handsome face behind that mask will save you now? The weapon in my hand is enough to deal with you. Why don't you just surrender? The snail grinned, baring its teeth in a sneer, while the other hand aimed the rifle straight at Jin Huk, who remained unafraid. Calmly picking up a piece of charred dragon scale from Hendrick, biting down hard on it, laughing heartily, saying 30 is still not the new year yet, seeing Jin Huk calmly pick up that charred scale. Eating it was a bit nauseating, but the surprise didn't stop there. After swallowing that scale, Hugh immediately transformed into a half-human, half-dragon creature that looked extremely terrifying. We really need the information you have. I really need to know that. Even if it means going a little overboard, that's fine. Jin Huk, with powerful dragon wings flapping on his shoulders, radiated a chilling aura, and proudly said the power that Jin Huk brought made the snail feel flustered, unable to speak. Because that is the legendary power of the Dragon Clan. Since obtaining this power, Jin Huk felt like he had transformed into another entity capable of performing any magic at will, truly living up to the saying. Dragons are masters of magic after all. Jin Hyuk took advantage of this to unleash countless dragon demon energies covering the sky, successfully shocking the snail into wide-eyed astonishment with the powerful spear-like attack. With the combination of countless bloody dark forces, Jin Hyuk quickly made the snail, who was once in an active position, now curl its tail and run away like a duck under the thunderous bullets exploding. The smoke and fire relentlessly chased after her, being pursued by this magic of the same level as the Dragon Clan, made the snail sweat profusely while running away, cursing non-stop. With the combination of countless bloodthirsty dark forces, Jin Hyuk quickly made the snail, which was in an active position now, curl its tail and flee like a duck under the thunderous bullets exploding around. The smoke and fire relentlessly chased after her with the magic of the same level as the Dragon Clan following, causing the snail to sweat profusely while running away, cursing non-stop. What kind of lame thing is this? Could it be that the demon face is also from the Dragon Clan? His magical energy changed after eating Hendrick's scales, don't tell me that. Now he can use the power of what he absorbed. The snail, frightened, mumbled to herself, but now she realizes it's too late because Jin Hyuk has been right on her tail for who knows how long. In a moment of crisis, the snail hurriedly swung her shining sword to counterattack against Jin Hyuk's fiery assault, which looked like a blazing free fire, seeing the snail floundering under his hands. This made Jin Hyuk very pleased, his mouth running non-stop with taunts, making the snail furious enough to want to bleed. To eliminate a traitor like you won't be hard at all. I will end this as you wish. Demon face, huh? The snail pushed to her limits, screamed, and unleashed a cannon-like attack, firing thunderous bolts at Jin Hyuk. The more agitated she became, the more Jin Hyuk felt strangely exhilarated. The dragon's storm erupted from his mouth, scattering wildly onto the snail, burning her to ashes like coal, leaving her to collapse to the ground, shattered like a fallen fruit. That rocket storm successfully dealt with the snail, but also severely harmed its host, Jin Hyuk, who was continuously coughing up blood. It's still too much to control the power of the Dragon Clan. I will need to try to get used to it. Jin Hyuk sighed to himself, his confused gaze scanning the empty space filled with dust from the shockwave he just caused. A moment later, the snail slowly opened her eyes, waking up with her whole body aching from the aftermath of the battle. Finally, you're awake. We were wondering when you would finally wake up. Hendrick spoke up first, surprised that you woke up even earlier than me. Just as expected from the power of the Dragon Clan. But where on earth are we? The snail looked around the pitch-black space in front of her, curiously asking. It was a magical barrier. 2 people had fainted and the entire area was destroyed. So I can't just leave it be. Jin Hyuk replied, knowing that he had failed miserably. Bowing his head and sighing heavily, his words filled with resentment towards Jin Hyuk and Hendrick with the power of the 4 major races. Hearing Hendrick ask why the snail wanted to bet on a fight like this, she was very clear-headed and beautiful, simply stating that she just wanted to fight a dragon. After all that, facing each other to the death with just one goal of going underground like that. The snail's answer truly left Hendrick and Jin Hyuk speechless, as it could maintain this magical barrier. Jin Hyuk had to struggle to use all the mana stones collected from the monster corpses. No kidding anyway, since you're awake you should fulfill your promise. Who exactly is the one who sent a bounty hunter to kill us? Jin Hyuk asked, holding his face. First of all, there's one thing I need to say. I wasn't just sent to kill you by one person. The place that put the bounty on you is an organization. You know about the punishment, right? A person climbing the high tower will have their abilities limited on lower floors, so they overlooked that punishment. By sponsoring and taking over a guild at a lower rank, and those guilds take over others at even lower floors, and so on. This chain reaction is how they reinforce their power, which is an association organization. A young man just heard about the association. Jin Hyuk frowned, trembling at the mention of the organization's name, the Holy Nation of 9 Stars Ken Pilo, which could maintain such enormous power to carry out such deeds. In the high-rise building of the Holy Nation Association, the 9 Stars summoned their subordinates to announce matters concerning the beloved Holy Nation Association. Having been raided by Jin Hyuk to prevent other associations from being implicated, the 9 Stars decided to devise a plan to crush Jin Hyuk, a seed of disaster. Before he could personally eliminate Jin Hyuk, the punishment would be too severe, so the cunning 9 Stars decided to hire a mercenary to act on their behalf. That mercenary was none other than a snail, but because she not only failed her mission but also leaked information to Jin Hyuk's group, the traces of Jin Hyuk's team had faded. After contacting her, the members of the Holy Nation Association used her as bait for the serpent. After being beaten up badly and caught in the monster's jaws, the weak, painful cries for help from the snail echoed, trembling, then gradually faded away. Haru on this side was also startled by the sounds of pleading. "Please help," she whimpered, jolting awake, her head buzzing as if struck by a hammer, wondering if the scene she just witnessed was a nightmare or an omen. Standing before her now were only Jin Huk and Miho. Haru anxiously looked around, wanting to know where Hendrick and the snail were. That guy had left earlier to gather information. Those who were hunting us were quite serious. It seemed he would go scout for a while. Even with the information the snail provided, she seemed fine. "Let's head to the next point, the black market," Jin Huk smiled in response. The three quickly arrived at the 51st floor of the commercial district. Jin Huk allowed Miho to eat anything she liked before the black market opened, making Miho as happy as a bird released from its cage. Haru, on the other hand, was still very anxious about the dream from the afternoon, her facial muscles tense like a guitar string, causing Jin Huk beside her to sense that something was off with Haru. As the sky gradually darkened before entering the black market, Jin Huk feared Haru's prominent appearance would be easily noticed, so he snapped his fingers to create a cute outfit for her to disguise herself. Miho then transformed into a fox and jumped onto Jin Hyuk's shoulder. After they were fully disguised, the three proceeded to the entrance where the staff verified their IDs. Upon seeing the powerful black card in Jin Hyuk's hand, they were a bit taken aback, guessing that if he didn't have a good sponsor, he wouldn't have been able to obtain it. After a moment of shock, they guided Jin Hyuk's group to sit in the VIP area. The signature mask that Jin Huk was wearing immediately made several people in the auditorium recognize him as the legendary masked figure, causing them to huddle together and whisper. After Jin Hyuk's group was seated upstairs, the auction began shortly after. Sitting there for a long time without anything worthwhile to buy made Jin Huk feel a bit restless. He realized something was off because there were many people downstairs. This meant something big was about to appear at the moment the next item was brought out. Without saying a word, Haru suddenly leaped down to the lower floor like a rabbit. Jin Huk was startled, panicking in front of the astonished gazes as Haru dashed straight toward the item. Feeling a whirlwind of emotions, he swore to help, because Haru had heard a cry for help just like in her dream coming from the item, but just as she was about to reach it. Haru was struck by the force of the old man. Participating in the auction along with his bodyguard, the old man knocked her down to the ground. "How dare you touch the item I've had my eye on?" "What an arrogant girl!" the chubby old man growled, cursing. "You should be the one to step aside. You just laid your hands on someone." Jin Huk, with his entire body radiating power, angrily approached to respond. His appearance looked extremely intimidating, and the old man also realized that Jin Huk was the hot masked figure recently. After helping Haru sit up, Jin Huk gently asked her what had happened. "I heard a voice coming from there." Haru trembled, pointing toward the item, revealing the chaotic scene, causing the MC to burst into laughter, thinking everyone was too excited about this precious item. "All right." Haru trembled and pointed at the item, indicating the chaotic scene, currently making the MC laugh out loud, thinking everyone was too excited about this valuable item. "All right. Keep this spirit and display the item." He snapped his fingers to signal the curtain to reveal a hairpin from the Oni tribe, which made Haru faintly remember her past, causing her to tremble all over. Her eyes widened in fury when she saw them daring to sell an item from her tribe at such a trivial auction. Jin Huk stood beside her, gently patting Tran's shoulder, suggesting she trust him. The starting price of the hairpin was 100,000 gold, and the number kept rising rapidly until it halted at 1 million as proposed by that old man. "Ha, with this I will add a new species to my collection. Too bad I don't have the Oni's beauty, but this is still fun, ha." He laughed triumphantly, as if taunting Haru, who was furious. He intended to swing his sword to physically strike the old man, but Jin Huk quickly stopped him with a shout of 3 million, causing the entire hall to fall silent. Everyone was stunned, their mouths agape at the outrageous price Jin Huk had announced, and just like that, the item belonged to Jin Huk amidst whispers of admiration for his wealth. Realizing he had inadvertently drawn attention for buying something at such a high price, Jin Huk hurriedly took Haru's hand and left. On the way back, Haru tightly held the hairpin and happily thanked Jin Huk, saying, "Thank you so much. You must have spent a lot of money, but it's not my money, so it's okay." "Thank Goldrich later," Jin Huk replied softly, successfully reclaiming the hairpin. In a moment, he vaguely heard someone thanking him. Then she vanished into thin air, tears welling up as she vowed to take revenge for everyone at all costs. Jin Huk now understood why Haru was so frenzied. Because that hairpin contained the soul of a deceased Oni wandering about. Suddenly, a shadow wielding a sword lunged at them from behind, but fortunately Jin Huk noticed in time. He counterattacked just in time, swinging his sword with a whoosh. Jin Huk had already recognized that person. It was the bodyguard of the fat old man who had missed out on the hairpin earlier. That was quite rude. "Didn't I already give you that item?" The old man smirked and stepped closer. "If you really want it, buy it at the auction." "Let me warn you, I won't let you have it," Jin Huk growled threateningly. Unexpectedly, the old man burst into laughter, slyly revealing that he no longer wanted the hairpin, but only wanted an Oni. A real one like Haru. Provoked Haru's blood boiled as she drew her sword and charged straight at the old man. The old man was not to be underestimated, either pulling out a heavy iron hammer. The gigantic hammer slammed down on her while Jin Huk, busy warning Haru not to get agitated, nearly got pierced in the face by the sharp blade of that bodyguard. His moves were so fast and powerful that Jin Huk guessed his skill level might even surpass Hendrick's on Haru's side. After realizing that this old man was quite strong but very slow, he decided to use a refined technique to solo him. However, just as Haru was frantically attacking, the old man pressed something on the hammer. This caused a torrent of toxic gas to pour out, and Haru turned pale, quickly covering her nose, reminding herself to stop breathing immediately. The poison made her lose her composure in an instant, and the old man quickly pinned her to the ground. Remember, little demon, once you reach the 50th floor, you'll realize that all tower climbers possess a trump card. This is a paralyzing toxin used in the poison needles of those despicable goblins. I have improved it and turned it into gas. You won't be able to move even a finger for a while. I don't care about your revenge responsibilities. So there's no need to be angry. Your life will not end. It will only begin anew. To make you obey me, I will cut some of your ligaments. You should feel honored. When he was to live as an item in my collection, he screamed and immediately pulled out a knife from his body, preparing to stab Haru, but at that very moment, Jin Huk appeared just in time like a god with a cold sword cutting across the old man's arm in a sharp line. You seem curious to see that I can still move, huh? Unfortunately, the poison has no effect on me. You are so ugly and worthless that you are not worth my attention, so I will just deal with you. Jin Huk spoke in a steady voice before the terrified expression of the old man. The severed arm sprayed ketchup everywhere, causing him to writhe in pain on the ground, squealing like a pig being slaughtered, and before he could hide his other hand, the bodyguard appeared. "You are quite quick, aren't you? If you had reacted a bit slower, it would have been bad," Jin Huk said, then opened a magic circle and unleashed the 5-finger spirit bullet, causing the ground beneath the bodyguard to explode like fireworks on New Year's Day. Something had blocked his attack. He was proficient in both sword and magic. Did he possess a hidden profession? The pressure was immense. It felt like facing a veteran tower climber. The bodyguard was sweating profusely, pale-faced. Thinking to himself, realizing the situation was dire, he approached to suggest to the old man, "Hurry up and retreat to treat your wounds," but he stubbornly refused, not wanting to miss Haru standing right in front of him, sweet-talking and not listening, just wanting to fight. The bodyguard, losing patience, pointed his sword straight at the old man's face, growling, "Have you forgotten the terms of the contract? In exchange for your protection while I fight the opponent, you are not to interfere. Get lost." The bodyguard threatened, and the old man was so scared he wanted to wet his pants, scurrying away like a rabbit because he couldn't get Haru. This greedy old man turned to snatch the hairpin and ran off. Haru was determined not to let him escape so easily, immediately drawing her sword to chase after him. But halfway there, she was obstructed by the bodyguard. Jin Huk, seeing this from behind, rushed in to assist Haru, his counterattacks ringing out fiercely. "Where do you think you're going? If you've started the battle, you should follow through to the end." Jin Huk frowned, asking with a raised chin. In the quiet of the night, Jin Huk and the bodyguard clashed fiercely as if there was no end, neither willing to give in. The surrounding scene quickly became devastated. Competing with him made Jin Huk feel a bit regretful that a talent like him was wasted in such a filthy place. In such filthy places. "It helped me meet a strong person like you." The bodyguard laughed, saying, "What, you're just a scared little mouse running away from continuing to climb the tower." Jin Huk's words successfully provoked the bodyguard's pride, causing a surge of anger that made him go insane, his strength and speed of attack becoming increasingly fierce. But no matter how strong he was in the end, he still had to take a fatal blow from Jin Huk with his ketchup spilling out. Spilling like floodwaters in the rainy season in his dying moments, he vaguely remembered where he had set foot on the 431st floor, where he had seen the true form of the treacherous tower. Deceit, betrayal, and so on, all the lowest forms of humanity. After being betrayed by his teammates, he lost his eyes there. In this filthy place, at least, the people here do not hide their filth from others. The bodyguard let out a scream and suddenly lunged with his sword, aimed straight at Jin Huk, but Jin Huk quickly dodged to the side, causing the sword to slam down into the ground, shattering the bricks like an earthquake had just passed. He knew that very well since the moment he was betrayed and killed, that terrible feeling. But do you know that your mentality is too weak? If you are really that strong, then hurry up and climb higher to deal with those who betrayed you. Jin Huk roared and then fiercely swung his fist. But do you know that your mentality is too weak? If you are truly as strong as that, then hurry up and climb higher to deal with those who have betrayed you. Jin Huk roared and aggressively swung his fist in a massage motion. The bodyguard was thrown back 10 meters by the overwhelming force of the drunken man crashing into the rubble, still unable to regain his composure. Then he was hit again by a powerful dark force coming from Jin Huk's position. I won't run like you because I will destroy those damn traitors. Jin Huk gritted his teeth, his hands continuously channeling immense power around him. His agonizing screams echoed through the silent night. On this side, the fat old man hurriedly fled after stealing the hairpin. Just as he was about to reach the main road, Sukuna had to return to meet his ancestors under the blade. The sharpness of Haru's blade spared him for his greed. Stupidity leads to death, not illness. After dealing with that old pest, Haru accidentally picked up something. A golden card fell from the old man's body. Jin Huk surprisingly spared the bodyguard at the last moment, leaving him confused about the reason. You still have things to do, right? Those bastards did this to your eyes. Destroy them all. Jin Huk turned his head and quietly said, Once I'm done, I will come find you and make you regret not dealing with me today. The bodyguard smirked in response. Jin Huk was also looking forward to that day, his cool demeanor forgiving Jin Huk's enemy, which left a strong impression on the bodyguard who guessed that he empathized with him. Perhaps it was because they both wanted revenge, but Jin Huk remained silent, not wanting to respond to those assumptions. At that time, Haru had returned home to inform Jin Huk that she had dealt with the fat old man, while also showing him the golden card she had picked up from him, which seemed to be linked to the auction house. But this could not be used for transactions. Usually such items are keys that allow participation in high-class auctions where one could acquire truly rare items. Jin Huk examined the card in his hand, unable to hide his excitement, when suddenly Haru bowed her head and apologized to Jin Huk for being angry and putting everyone in danger. Jin Huk was not angry or resentful. He gently patted her head and said, It's okay, I know how much that hairpin means to you. I can still handle it. But remember, there are times when you shouldn't focus on your desire for revenge. Haru remembered Jin Huk's words and smiled softly, nodding at him thanks to the secret key she had found. Jin Huk and Haru successfully entered the exclusive auction for the elite after a long wait observing the auction that was about to begin. It concluded with a final luxurious item causing the surrounding customers with bull-headed and horse-faced appearances to suddenly show strange excitement. The entire hall immediately erupted in noise, making Jin Huk very curious about what was about to happen, as a gigantic cage gradually descended from above. Covered with a red cloth, Jin Huk guessed it must be some mysterious creature or divine beast. But at the moment the red cloth was lifted, what struck Jin Huk's eyes was a slender girl bound in chains, making him unable to hold back a curse at the brutality of this auction organization. The aura was truly astonishing. He was sure she came here with no good intentions, but besides the aura, he also sensed the pure mana of a high elf, a dark elf. These were the variants whose ancestors had come into contact with demonic energy. Pure mana was a special characteristic of the high variant elf contrasting with the dark elf. They could not coexist. Jin Huk stared at the elf girl lost in thought when suddenly he explained to Jin Huk that it was not entirely impossible for them to coexist, because there was still a possibility that someone could force a high elf to come into contact with demonic energy. A high elf would not easily be corrupted like that. If it were possible, how could the four royal families exist? Jin Huk was sweating, doubting as the entire auditorium was filled with the sounds of bidding, making the atmosphere chaotic like a flea market. But soon everything fell silent. After hearing the staggering price of 5.5 million gold offered by Hamile, the Angel of Eternity, the elf girl suddenly became agitated, thrashing and screaming incessantly. "Hamile, how dare you! I will never sell to you, never if I get out of here!" Suddenly agitated, flailing and screaming nonstop. "Hamile, how dare you! I will never sell to you, never if I escape from here! You will be the first I tear apart into pieces before the uncontrollable elf girl Hamile, who stands by calmly pursing her lips with a smile full of meaning. Don't be angry. Just think about it, princess. Instead of becoming a toy for those old men to play with, why don't you become my pet?" Hamile gently advised, but she still couldn't suppress the rising anger in her eyes. However, just before the moment when 5 million was finalized, Jin Huk suggested adding another 4.5 million, leaving everyone, especially Hamile, stunned. Regarding his extravagant spending habits, the amount of 10 million gold was the highest bid ever made on the 51st floor, causing those present in the room to gasp in shock. The chaos created an unprecedented scene, and Hamile, with Jin Huk rolling up his sleeves, was so furious that she gritted her teeth, her eyes filled with rage, releasing a fierce aura, as if trying to intimidate him. "Oh my, is she using her power to make me give up the auction?" Jin Huk feigned surprise and burst out laughing, asking, "I should be the one to say that. Don't change the subject. How can you possibly afford that amount of money?" Hamile glared and growled, but in response she was met with a powerful force from Jin Huk, realizing she had touched something she shouldn't have and she had to restrain her anger. Then raised the bid to 10 million gold. Who could afford that? Jin Huk once again shot up to 20 million, making everyone, including Haru and those around, gasp. Oh, they were wide-eyed in shock, thinking he had gone mad. As for Hamile, it goes without saying her face turned pale, struggling to breathe, filled with confusion, not understanding why he wanted to buy that elf so much and why he was staring at her like that pigeon. "It only makes me want to gouge your eyes out. One day I will kill the 4 royal families, but with my current power I still can't. However, if it's money I can defeat you. This much is enough to satisfy me." Jin Huk secretly observed Hamile's sulky expression and smugly thought that she still couldn't believe Jin Huk had that much money in his account. The shadow elf belonged to Jin Huk for 20 million gold. Before preparing the goods, the staff handed him a magical key. To unlock the chains, seeing him flatter, wanting to know when he would come by again, Jin Huk coldly ordered him to hurry and bring the goods to him. Harry Potter was a bit curious to know. "Are you planning to use that shadow elf as a slave or something?" "I'm not crazy enough to do that," Jin Huk replied in surprise. The guy didn't need to discuss it, because he was already a spirit. Jin Huk was just a bit surprised, not thinking Haru would see him as such a terrible person. Haru hurriedly shook her head, saying she had no bad thoughts. She simply thought that elf girl was quite beautiful. The group was chatting when Hamile approached from a distance, her face wearing a fake smile as she greeted Jin Huk. "If she came to steal my goods, then give up. Someone has tried that and ended up in the ground." Jin Huk coldly replied to her face, "Of course not. I just want to know why you brought her here if you're okay with that." Hamile, thick-skinned, curiously asked if she found it rude, then why ask at all? Even if she was one of the 4 royal families, don't think everyone would treat her well, Jin Huk said with a cold smirk splashing water in her face. Facing Jin Huk's ruthless demeanor, Hamile could only curl her lips in a sneer, "Then I give up. I just want to spend time getting to know you better, but a report about you has reached the higher-ups." At Hamile's threatening words, Jin Huk was so furious that he wanted to rush in and slash her to vent his anger, but he managed to calm himself down and reassure himself. "No, I still can't sleep. If I give it my all, I can handle the pigeon with all those punishments being applied. But the consequences are that the stronger angels will definitely chase after me if I remain weak like this. I won't be able to confront them directly. Right now, I have to wait for Jin to tightly clench his fists, trying to appear calm in the face of Hamile's taunts about that beautiful hairpin. Too bad I can no longer see it because I burned them all." Hamile slyly whispered in Haruo's ear with mocking words that made Jin Huk realize that her target from the beginning was still Haruo, fearing that Haru would be provoked into doing something unwise. Jin Huk hurriedly called Haru back, hoping to dissuade her, but Haru did not show any loss of control as Jin Huk predicted. She simply lowered her head and replied in a deep voice, "It's okay, I know that now is the time I have to become numb when saying these words." Haru gritted her teeth, her eyes red like blood, trying to swallow her anger down her throat. "I have a feeling we will meet again soon." "I will wait on the 10th floor, okay." Hamile smirked, changed her tone, and turned to leave in such a quick stride that Jin Huk couldn't call out after her. By the time Jin Hyuk caught up, all that remained in front of him was a flurry of feathers, just fluttering in the air. Hamile was nowhere to be seen anymore. I don't know what she's scheming, but just wait. I will come to take your head, Jin Hyuk muttered to himself later at the outskirts on the 15th floor, where Vun Khan was busy using soul weapons to drive all the wandering spirits away. Not letting anyone get close or eavesdrop on the conversation between Jin Hyuk and the Dark Elf, Jin Hyuk was now with Haru and Miho approaching the cage, expressing to the elf girl that he meant no harm. Ha ha, it all contributes, right? Then what's the difference between those kids and you? The elf girl still maintained a vigilant attitude toward Jin Hyuk. Smirking as she said whether she believed it or not, what was her name, Jin Hyuk asked in a low voice, listening to the elf girl. She said her name was Elleon von Gressel. Jin Hyuk was extremely surprised because von Gressel was the surname of a royal lineage derived from the name of the god of the elf tribe. So the elf girl in front of him was indeed a noble elf, something Jin Hyuk was completely unaware of at that moment. A group of dark beings was frantically searching the entire forest for him, a true noble elf. She was a high-level elf and a noble, so there was still room for development. The dark energy she absorbed when becoming a dark elf would be even stronger. Speaking of which, Hamile seemed to have a deep grudge against the four royal families. She was very suitable to be a schemer. Jin Hyuk clicked his tongue, lost in thought about everything, while Elleon was also racking his brain thinking about how to escape. This chain has suppressed my power. Even if I were released, I still wouldn't be able to use my strength for a while if I wanted him to act, which was already a mess trying to find a way out of here. Suddenly, Jin Hyuk used the key to unlock the door, making Elleon exclaim in astonishment at his action. "Get up, I have something to ask," Jin Hyuk said in a deep voice, demanding. Elleon, who saw an opening, hurriedly leaped out of the cage like a bird escaping from a cage trying to flee, but had barely taken a few steps before falling clumsily to the ground. "Give it up, mana and soul are the strengths of elves, not brute strength." Duyen Hu stepped closer behind Elleon and softly spoke, "You bought me for 20 million. Or, what do you want? This is just perfect. No one knows what you will do, a dark elf without power, just like those bastards who wanted to buy me. You intend to exploit me to satisfy your desires. What the hell?" Elleon glared with fur bristling, growling out sensitive words through clenched teeth, making Haru's face flush red as she hurriedly covered little Miho's ears and then gave Elleon a look. Jin Hyuk is not that kind of person. The system members also explained to Jin Hyuk that it was too early to engage in such matters. With the end theory of sex education, Jin Hyuk truly wanted to lose his mind over this. He had no dark intentions towards Elleon. It was indeed a case of love amidst chaos, and just as he was trying to explain, a loud explosion rang out, startling Jin Hyuk. He subtly signaled to Vun Khan to report, thinking that their position had been discovered by the recent tower climbers, who were numerous. Vun Khan was then busy fighting against them. The aggressive tower climbers had just reported via signal to Jin Hyuk that the ambushers knew he had purchased all the auction items, which was why they had gathered here to ambush him. Their force was unbearable. Hamile is that girl. Jin Hyuk narrowed his eyes in worry, thinking that after Haru and Miho went over to assist Vun Khan, he had stayed here with Elleon to talk, and Elleon had now lowered all her guard around him. The eye suggested he should bring wine, hoping Haru and Miho would buy time for Vun Khan to take advantage of this opportunity. He unleashed a massive soul attack, sending the tower climbers back to their ancestors in one blow, contrasting sharply with the chaotic battlefield. Jin Hyuk and Elleon were sitting silently together in the forest, discussing how strong his teammates were and that he could control them, making them even stronger. "With such power, why did you overlook the angels? In the auction house, someone like you should be able to handle someone weakened by the tower's punishment." "Right?" Elleon questioned, asking if fighting now would yield her nothing. Jin Hyuk replied grimly that she was restraining her emotions for a greater purpose. Unlike him, had she ever had to stab her own family member? Elleon gulped down the wine, her eyes filled with pain as she looked at Jin Hyuk, which shocked him. It turned out that in the past, Elleon had to stab her father to death with her own hands. At his own request, before leaving forever, he managed to pass on the Gresso seed and his future to her. Elleon's brother Elias had betrayed their clan to the four royal clans. In exchange for power for himself, just before he caught up with her, her father had shouted for her to quickly eat that Gresso seed, but his words had not finished. He had to fall silent after Hamile's sharp blade, and the Gresso seed Elleon held was also shattered into pieces by Hamile, not stopping there. She used pure magic to corrupt her. She wanted to trample the honor of a noble high elf like her underfoot, causing her to fall deeper into despair. After that, Elleon was sold into slavery and met Jin Huk. She understood that even elves were eliminated by the 4 royal clans, but the elves on the 300th floor were too strong for them to kill. Their mana and summoning magic were things the 4 royal clans could not deal with at this moment. The most effective way was to have a traitor from within. After hearing Elleon's story, Jin Huk pondered deeply at her exhausted, desperate appearance. At this moment, Jin Huk proposed that she join the conspiracy against the heavens, promising to help her take revenge on that bastard, the one who had turned her into a slave and taken over the kingdom. Haru, despite having wiped out all the tower climbers, still felt an unshakable worry when thinking about it. Jin Huk and Elleon were alone together, and Haru's overthinking surged so intensely that she wondered if Elleon would capture Jin Hyuk's heart. Would she? If that's the case, then Haru would surely wilt from jealousy, worrying about unnecessary things. Haru almost met her end at the hands of a giant red eye if Jin Huk hadn't rushed in to save her in time.